You're listening to O'Farrell Audiobooks. My name is Josh O'Farrell, and I'll be narrating stories from the Penguin Classics' early Irish myths and sagas, which were translated by Geoffrey Gantz. Penguin Classics' early Irish myths and sagas. Advisory Editor, Betty Radis. These early Irish stories, probably first written down around the 8th century, represent the foremost written repository of the oral tradition of the Iron Age Celts, who flourished in Europe during the 7th centuries before Christ. As well as creating iconic social and artistic foundations throughout the continent, their myths and tales have been said to be the earliest voices from the dawn of Western civilizations. But later, with the growth of Viking and Roman empires, the Celtic influence declined until it was only in Ireland, on the fringes of Europe and less exposed to the new traditions, that their original culture was preserved in a beautiful and elusive language, with themes foreshadowing those still current in the inspiration of Yeats, Synge and Joyce. Geoffrey Gantz received a doctoral degree in Celtic languages and literatures from Harvard University in 1972. He lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where he works as a newspaper editor and journalist. He has also translated the Mabinogion for Penguin Classics. Early Irish Myths and Sagas, translated with an introduction and notes by Geoffrey Gantz. Read by Josh O'Farrell, in association with O'Farrell Audiobooks and Penguin Books. Introduction. Early Irish Myths and Sagas. One day in winter, Deirdre's foster father was outside, in the snow, flaying a weaned calf for her. Deirdre saw a raven drinking the blood on the snow, and she said to Lebrachan, "I could love a man with those 3 colours, hair like a raven, cheeks like blood, and body like snow." Passage taken from the Exile as Sons of Leishlu. This passage, from one of the finest stories ever written in Ireland, evinces much of what Irish literature is: romantic, idealistic, stylised, and yet vividly, even appallingly, concrete. Most of all, it exemplifies the tension between reality and fantasy that characterises all Celtic art. In Ireland, this art has taken many forms: illumination, the books of Doro and Kells; metalwork, the Arda chalice and the Tara brooch; sculpture, the stone crosses at Moon and Clonmacnee; architecture, the rock of Cashel and the various round towers; music, Turla or Corlan. But this tension manifests itself particularly in the literature of Ireland, and most particularly in the myths and sagas. No more precise description is possible, at least for the moment, that survive in Irish manuscripts dating back to the 12th century. There are many reasons why this should be so. To begin with, these stories originated in the mists of Irish prehistory. Some elements must predate the arrival of the Celts in Ireland, and they developed through the course of centuries until reaching their present manuscript state. Consequently, they managed to be both archaic and contemporary. Their setting is both historical Ireland, itself an elusive entity, and the mythic underworld of the Seed, Ireland's fairy people, who live in burial mounds called Seed and exhibit magical powers, and it is not always easy to tell one from the other. Many of the characters are partially euphemized gods. That is, they are gods in the process of becoming ordinary mortals, so that, again, it is not easy to tell divine from human. At bottom, this tension between reality and fantasy is not accidental to the circumstances of literary transmission and formation, but rather an innate characteristic, a gift of the Celts. The world of the Irish story is graphic. Blood spurts not only from the calf flayed for Deirdre, but also from the lips of Anluin, as the head is thrown from across the table, in the tale of Macda Do's pig. The hero of Briacu's Friest is tossed from the balcony of his house onto a garbage heap. The warriors of the Ulad, the Irish name for Ulster, are all but roasted in an iron house in the intoxication of the Ulad. Yet this story also magically bright and achingly beautiful. The 2 players of lovers, Meador and Eitan in the Woolly of Eitan, and Oengus and Caer Ibermus in the Dream of Oengus, turn into swans. The hero of the destruction of Da Darga's hostel can dispatch several hundred foes without even reaching for his weapons. Macda Do's pig is so large that 40 oxen can be laid across it. Myth obtrudes upon reality at every turn. In the destruction of Da Darga's hostel, a bird descends through a skylight, sheds his bird outfit, and sleeps with the woman Mes Buchala, thus fathering the story's hero, Conair Mar. In the Wooing of Eitan, Meader's wife Fumnach turns her rival Eitan into a scarlet fly. In the wasting sickness of Cuchulainn, Cuchulainn is horsewhipped and then healed by two women from the other world, shades of the German women in Fionnual's Casanova. In these Irish stories, then, the pride and energy of reality are allied with the magic and beauty of fantasy, and the result is infused with a rare degree of idealism. In the other world of The Wooing of Eitan, not only are bodies white as snow and cheeks red as foxglove, there is no mine or yours. The Celts. The traditions of these early Irish stories originated with the Celts, an Indo-European group who were the ancestors of the Irish, the Scots, the Welsh, the Cornish, the Bretons, and the people of the Isle of Man. When and where this group first appeared is, rather fittingly, an elusive, even controversial question. The conservative view, and perhaps the most prevalent, is the Celts surfaced with the beginning of the Iron Age in Europe, roughly 1000 BC, and this is certainly the earliest period in which the archaeological testimony affords positive proof. Miles Dillon and Nora Chadwick, however, propose to date the first Celtic settlements of the British Isles of the early Irish Age, circa 1800 BC, and identify the Beaker folk as Celts. Leon Eastover and Bruce Craig go further still, comparing the classical descriptions of the Iron Age Celts with what they infer from burials at Stonehenge and Uintis, a cemetery near Prague. They propose to classify the Wessex and Uctican warriors as formative Celts and conclude by claiming that the Celts emerged as a dominant people in Europe by the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC. Controversy is largely semantic. Wessex, as presented by Stover and Craig, does look like an early form of what is described by Posidonius and Caesar, but then so does the heroic society of Homer's Iliad, and of course there is no linguistic evidence at all. Presumably, from the beginning of the 3rd millennium on there developed, in Europe and subsequently in Britain and Ireland, heroic societies that gradually became, both culturally and linguistically, Celtic. In any event, by the beginning of the early part of the 1st millennium BC, the Celts clearly had emerged, not as a subset of their Slavic or Germanic or Italic neighbours, but as a discrete Indo-European ethnic and cultural group. Moreover, during the course of that millennium, they became the dominant people in non-Mediterranean Europe. From their homeland, probably in Bohemia, they expanded westward into France and Spain and, eventually, Britain and Ireland, southward into Italy and eastward into Turkey, where they became the Galataeans of St. Paul. These early Celts took with them not only their chariots and their iron swords, but also a distinctive geometric linear art, called Hallstatt, after an important cemetery in Austria. By 500 BC, a new art form had sprung up. This called Latin, after a site in Switzerland. Much less restrained than its predecessor, Latin is a kind of Baroque development, all curves and spirals and luxuriant paint and animal outgrowths. At this time too, Celts began to come under notice of the classical author. Herodotus, writing in the mid-5th century, described the Celtoi as tall by Mediterranean standards, and with light skin and hair and eyes, boastful and vainglorious but demonic in battle, childlike and ostentatious but hospitable, fond of hunting and feasting, and music and poetry, and glittering jewellery in bright colours. And his impressions were confirmed by subsequent accounts, particularly those attributed to Posidonius in the 1st century BC. With their energy and warlike temperament, the Celts were able to expand quickly. By 390 BC, they sacked Rome, and by 279 BC, Delphi. Many tribes settled in France, where the Romans called them Gauls, but their numbers also included the Boii, Boulogne and Bohemia, the Belgae, Belgium, and the Helvetii, Switzerland. Moreover, their settlements included Lithuania Parsimium, Paris, Lugdunum, Lyon, Vindobona, Vienna, and Mediolanum, Milan, and they also named the Sequina, Seine, and the Divina, Danube. Unfortunately, the Celtic tribal free-spiritedness has no match for Roman civic organisation. Caesar's defeat of Vercingetorix at Alesia in 52 BC signalled the decline of the Celtics' hegemony in Europe. Thereafter, they were overrun and assimilated. As a distinct entity, Celtic language and culture disappeared in Europe, though of course their influence persisted. In Great Britain, the Celtic tribes were driven back into Scotland, Wales and Cornwall, from where they eventually reclaimed Brittany. by the numerous incursions of Romans, Anglo-Saxons, and Normans. Ireland was a different story, by virtue of its westerly and isolated geographic position. This island remained free of Roman colonisation. Thus, Irish society did not change appreciably until the advent of Christianity in the 5th century, and the arrival of Viking raiders sometime thereafter. Consequently, the culture of the Iron Age Celts survived in Ireland long after it had been extinguished elsewhere. It is this conservatism that makes early Irish tales, quite apart from their literary value, such as valuable repository of information about the Celtic people. Irish storytelling. Irish literature, meaning whatever was written down in Irish, of this time encompassed a broad area, including history, genealogy, and law tracts. But it is poetry and narrative prose that are relevant to the Irish myths and sagas. The earliest poetry was alliterative and symbolic, with end rhyme appearing later. In Welsh literature, there are epics told entirely through the medium of verse, the Gondolin, for example, in Ireland. However, the storytelling medium is invariably prose. Some of the very archaic poetry is essential to the tables in which it appears. Thus, the rhetorics in the early part of the Cattle Raid of Coolney help to clarify the relationship among Elil, Maeve, and Fergus. The poetry in the Exile of the Sons of Leishlu, on the other hand, reinforces the narrative, adds detail, mostly descriptive, and provides weight, but it can be omitted without loss of sense. Conceivably, these myths, sagas, were at one time recited entirely in verse. What remains, however, it is largely decorative. The earliest forms of transmission must have been oral. Storytelling was a favourite entertainment among the Celts, and one version of the Voyage of Bran states that Monaghan, an Ulad king who died about 625 AD, was told a story by his Fili, a kind of poet, every winter night from Sanwin to Beltane. Presumably the storytellers did not memorise entire tales. Rather, they memorised the outlines and filled in the details extemporaneously. Eventually, perhaps as early as the 7th century, the tales began to be transcribed. Thereby two processes, rather opposite in effect, were initiated. In many cases tales are reworked and acquire literary veneer. This is certainly true to the Book of Leinster opening to the Cattle Raid of Coolney, and would seem to apply to the Cattle Raid of Freak, and to the concluding section of the Wasting Sickness of Claude. These same tales also have deteriorated considerably by the time they reach our earliest 12th century surviving manuscripts. This deterioration is not likely to have originated with the storytellers themselves, for a long tale would naturally be prolonged over several evenings, which would be in the storyteller's interest, since during their time he would be enjoying his host's hospitality. And in any case, as James de Largy had pointed out, no audience would have listened very long to the storyteller if he were to recite tales in the form in which they would come down to us. The people who wrote these stories down, however, were, for the most part, not literary artists, and of course they lacked the incentive of an appreciative and reimaginative audience. Banquet hall transcription cannot have been that easy, and scribe doubtless grew weary before the storyteller did. Consequently, it is not surprising that spelling is erratic, that inconsistencies abound. This could also result from a storyteller's attempting to conflate multiple traditions, and that many tales deteriorated from a promising beginning. Some formulaic passages, such as the destruction of Dea Dariga's hostel, are represented simply by et reliquia. As manuscripts were recopied, moreover, additional errors inevitably appeared. Some areas are manifestly corrupt, and in the case of the archaic poetic sections, it seems doubtful whether the scribes understood what they were writing. All this is hardly surprising. Just consider the problems attendant upon the texts of Shakespeare's plays, only 400 years old, but it should be remembered that what survives in the manuscripts, however beautiful, is far from representative of the stories at their best. The Irish manuscripts. The language of these tales varies considerably as to date, but at its oldest, and allowing for some degree of deliberate archaism, it appears to go back to the 8th century. One may assume the tales were originally being written down at least then, if not earlier. Unfortunately, Scandinavian raiders were legion in Ireland at this time, and they tended to destroy whatever was not worth taking away. Consequently, very few manuscripts predating 1000 AD have survived. Among the missing is the Book of Drumshnachti, which belonged to the first part of the 8th century, and included the Wooing of Eitan, the destruction of Dá Dariga's hostel, and the Birth of Cuckoo. Of the manuscripts that have survived, the two earliest and most important for these tales belong to the 12th century. They were the Ghaedra, the Book of Dun Cow, is so called after a famous cow belonging to Saint Ciaran of Clonmacnoise. The chief scribe, a monk Mael Muir, was slain by raiders at the Clonmacnoise Cathedral in 1106. Unfortunately, the manuscript is only a fragment, though 67 leaves of 8 by 11 vellum remain. At least as much have been lost. Birth of Cuckoo comprises 37 stories, most of them myths and sagas, and includes substantially complete versions of the destruction of Dod Argus Hostel, the Birth of Cuckoo, the wasting sickness of Cuckoo, and Briku's feast, as well as an incomplete Wooing of Eitan, and accounts of the intoxication of the Ulad and the cattle raid of Coolney. The second manuscript, which is generally known as the Book of Leinster, is much larger, having 187 9 by 13 leaves. It dates to about 1160 and includes in its fairy contents complete versions of the cattle raid of Freach, the labour pains of the Ulad, the tale of Macdado's pig, and the exile of the sons of Ulishlu, as well as an unfinished and rather different intoxication of the Ulad and a complete, more polished cattle raid of Coolney. Two later manuscripts also contribute to this volume: the Yellow Book of Lechan, which offers complete accounts of the wooing of Eitan and the death of Aoife's only son, that dates to the 14th century, and Egerton 1782, which includes the Dream of Wingus and has the date 1419 written out. These manuscripts do not, of course, date the stories they contain. Our earliest complete version of the wooing of Eitan appears in the 14th century Yellow Book of Lechan, yet we have a partial account in this 12th century Labor na Héadra, and we know from the contents list of the Book of Drum Shnachti that the tale was in written form by the early 8th century. What we do not know, and probably never will, is whether the Drum Shnachti version was very different from the one in the Yellow Book of Lechan, whether the tale assumed a written form earlier than in the 8th century, and what the tale was like before it was first written down. Even the surviving manuscripts, which are fortunate to have, are far from ideal. Obscure words abound, some passages seem obviously corrupt, and there are entire missing leaves. The Irish material. Convention and tradition have classified the early Irish tales into 4 groups called cycles. 1. The Mythological Cycle, whose protagonists are the seed and whose tales are set primarily among the burial mounds of the Boyne Valley. 2. The Ulster Cycle, which details the purportedly historical exploits of the Ulad, a few centuries before or after the birth of Christ. 3. The King Cycle, which focuses on the activities of the historical kings. 4. The Fiend Cycle, which describes the adventures of Fiend MacCool and his Fianna, and which did not achieve widespread popularity until the 12th century. Although these categories are useful, it should be remembered that these are also modern. No particular arrangement is apparent in the manuscripts, while it seems that the storytellers groups tales by type. Births, deaths, cattle raids, destructions, visions, wooings, etc. for ease in remembering, and unofficial. Characters from one cycle often turn up in another. The seed woman Boan is introduced as Freak's aunt in the Ulster Cycle's cattle raid of Freak. The otherworld figure Mendadon appears in the Ulster Cycle's wasting sickness of Cuchulainn. And in the King Cycle's Adventures of Cormac, Ulad warriors join the invaders in the Mythological Cycle's destruction of Dod Argus Hostel. Halil and Mabe, King and Queen of Connachta, take part in the Mythological Cycle's Dream of Wingus. Also, one should not suppose that the Mythological Cycle is populated exclusively by deities or that the other cycles are inhabited exclusively by mortals. Many of the humans are barely euphemised gods. Many of the gods behave much like humans, and the two groups are often difficult to distinguish. The material of these tales encompasses both impacted myth and corrupted history. Although Irish mythology does evince the tripartism detected by George Dumzil in other Indo-European cultures, the Second Battle of Maltur is on one level an explanation of how the priests and warriors, Dumil's first few functions, wrested the secrets of agricultural from the third function to farmers. Its fundamental orientation seems more seasonal than social, for the mythic subtexts of these tales focus on themes of dying kings and alternating lovers. This strong pre-Indo-European element in Irish mythology probably derives both from the Celts' innate conservatism and from the fringe position of Ireland in the geography of the Indo-European world. These themes are stated most clearly in the Wooing of Eitan and the Exile of the sons of Ulishlu. In the former story, Boan passes from her husband Elkmer to the Dog Day, also called Éacu, and then returns to Elkmer. Éacan goes from Meader to Wingus and back to Meader, from Éacu Éirim to Elil and Gobay and back to Éacu, and from Éacu Éirim to Meader and back, in some versions, to Éacu. In the latter tale, Deirdre passes from an old king, Concobar, to a young hero, Nuishnu, and back to Concobar after Nuishnu's death. When Concobar threatens to send her to Nuishnu's murderer, she kills herself. Sometimes the woman's father substitutes for the dying king. This variant appears in the Greek tales of Jason Médée and Theseus and Eurynome. Oengus has to win Eitan away from her father in the wooing of Eitan, and Caer Ibermach away from hers in the dream of Oengus. Frigg has to win Findabar from Elil and Mabe, but primarily, and significantly, from Elil, in the cattle raid of Frigg, while Cuchulainn has to win Emer from Forgil in the wooing of Emer. Sometimes the dying king is absent, and the regeneration theme is embodied in the wooing of the mortal hero by a beautiful Waterworld woman, whom he often loses or leaves. Caer Ibermaith seeks out Oengus in the dream of Oengus. Macaw comes to Cruig in the labour pains of Ubulad. Fond appears to Cuchulainn in the wasting sickness of Cuchulainn. This variant persists even in the Fiend cycle, where Niamh's wooing of Oisin became the basis of Yeat's wanderings of Oisin. And sometimes the theme threatens only of the dying king. In the destruction of Dá Darga's hostel, Conair Mair is slain, at Samhain, in the hostel of a chthonic red god. The intoxication of the Ulad, Cuchulainn is nearly burnt, also at Samhain in an iron house in the southwest of Ireland, where the House of Dawn, an Irish otherworld deity, was located. Centuries of historical appropriation and Christian censorship notwithstanding, these regeneration themes are never far from the narrative surface, and in their ubiquitousness is apparent their power. As history, the early Irish tales verge upon wishful thinking, if not outright propaganda. The Ulster cycle, however, does not appear to preserve genuine traditions of a continuing conflict between the Ulad, who appear to have concentrated in an area around present-day Armagh, and the Ui Níl, who was probably centred at Taimhir, though for reasons suggested earlier. They have been removed to present-day Connacht by the storytellers. In any case, it is a valuable repository of information about the Ireland of prehistory, with its extensive descriptions of fighting. Chariots are still in the norm, and feasting, an abundance of strong words and strong drink, and dress, opulent at least for the aristocracy, and its detailing of such institutions as fosterhood, clientship, and the taking of sureties. The important but not very surprising conclusion generated by this information is that the Irish society represented by the Ulster cycle is still very similar to the Gaulish civilization described by Caesar, and there are good reasons to think it is not very different from the Celtic world of an even earlier period. What is surprising though is that these tales, which betray a natural and unmistakable bias towards the Ulad and against the Connachta, do not more consequently depict Ulster society of its zenith. Cuchulainn is the only true hero in the Ulster cycle, and his deeds are more often superhuman than heroic. Conchobar, as early as the boyhood deeds of Cuchulainn, serves notice that he will be largely a roi fenaint, and among Ulad warriors there is, cattle raid of Coolney, accepted, more talk than action. Odder still than many of the best known and most important tales, there are clear instances of parody. In the death of Aoife's only son, the Ulad are awestruck by the feats of a 7-year-old boy. In the tale of Mac Dado's pig, Ulad and Connacht are reduced to fighting over a dog, at least in the cattle raid of Coolney. The bone of contention is a bull, and the Ulad are ridiculed and put to shame by the Connacht champion. In the intoxication of the Ulad, Cuchulainn loses his way and leads the Ulad on a drunken spree across Ireland, while the two druids guarding Cuire's stronghold bicker and quarrel. And in Breacu's feast, the wives of the Ulad warriors squabble over precedence in centering the drinking hall, while Breacu is accidentally flung out of his house and onto a garbage dump. Conchobar's treachery, equivalent to Arthur's murdering Lancelot, in the exiled sons of Lishlu, eliminates any doubt. The society of the Ulster cycle, for all its splendour that attaches to it, is a society in decline. A note on Irish geography. In this translation, Old Celtic place names are given in their original Old Irish forms rather than Anglicizations. This should cause neither undue concern nor any great confusion. But, for the reader's convenience, the most important names are listed here together with their English equivalents. Eru, the island of Ireland. Albu, originally the island of Britain, later Northern Britain, still later just Scotland. Breton, the southern part of the British Isle, the people of that area. Ulad, Ulster, especially the area between Armagh and Dundalk, and the people of that area. Connacht, Connacht, especially the area around Cruachu, and the people of that area. Lagrin, Leinster, the people of that area. Mumu, Munster. Meath, Mead, but really modern Meath and Westmeath. The eastern part may be called Brega. Brewing de Boinde, Newgrange. Taimhir, Tara. Dundalga, Dundalk. Athclia, Dublin. Ben Either, Howth. Athluen, Athlone. Boand, the Rutherboyne. Lifa, Rosroch, the River Liffey. Sinad, the River Shannon. The Wooing of Eitan. Introduction. Apart from being a remarkable tale, The Wooing of Eitan has a remarkable history. Although it is preserved in Le Born na Chéide, the beginning of the first section and the ending of the third are missing, and only the short second section is complete. This situation persisted until this century, when a complete version of the story was discovered lying innocently among a part of the Yellow Book of Lechan housed in Cheltenham. And in 1937, the complete text of The Wooing of Eitan finally appeared in print. The three sections are virtually independent tales. The first comprises a set of variations upon the regeneration theme of the rival lovers. Thus, in the opening episode, Boand goes from her husband Elchmer to the Dag Day and then back to Elchmer. Oengus' efforts to win Eitan away from her father represent the variant of the type found in the Welsh Hal Chulwech one Olwen, while her concealing her from Maeder suggests the two gods were originally rivals. In the second section, Eichu and Elael are the rival claimants. Elael's love sickness recalling that of Galalfwe in the Ma son of Machanwe. Eitan goes from Eichu to Elael and back to Eichu. In the final section, it is Maeder and Eichu who contest Eitan, and the tasks assigned Maeder recall those imposed upon the Dag Day in the first section, and those imposed upon Culwich. Eitan goes from Eichu to Maeder, back to Eichu, in the person of her daughter, back to Maeder, and in some traditions, back to Eichu. The uncertain conclusion underlines in the second motif. The Wooing of Eitan is also a kind of legal primer. The first section, wherein Oengus gains possession of Brúig na Boinde, at Samhain naturally, demonstrates the Irish had a poetic sense of law. Frank O'Connor says that the trick, borrowing the use of Newgrange for a day and a night, has some hysteric meaning that I cannot grasp. But there is nothing hysteric here. Oengus' argument that it is in the days and nights the world passes explains everything. Maeder uses the same trick in the third section for, in claiming that Eichu has sold Eitan, he is clearly arguing that my arms around Eitan and a kiss from her entitle him to permanent possession of her, that it is in embraces and kisses that love is spent. Actually, since the last Fithkiel game is played for an open stake, Maeder could simply have asked for Eitan outright, but perhaps then Eichu would not have kept the bargain. Since Eichu does not accept this argument, he claims that he has not sold Eitan. Maeder is forced to trick him for a second time, thinking that he has picked out Eitan from among the 50 women. Eichu pledges himself content, but actually he has chosen his own and Eitan's daughter. Maeder's name appropriately seems to have derived from a Celtic root meaning to judge. The Wooing of Eitan. There was over Eru a famous king from the Tuatha de Dod, and Eichu Oldhir was his name. Another name for him was the Dag Day, for it was he who performed miracles, and saw to the weather and the harvest, and that is why he was called the Good God. Elchmer of Brúig na Boinde had a wife whose name was Eitan, though she was also called Boand. The Dag Day wanted to sleep with Boand, and she would have allowed him, but she feared Elchmer and the extent of his power. The Dag Day sent Elchmer away then, on a journey to Bress son of Eiltha at Mogninish, and as Elchmer was leaving, the Dag Day cast great spells upon him, so that he would not return quickly, so that he would not perceive the darkness of night, so that he would feel neither hunger nor thirst. The Dag Day charged Elchmer with great commissions, so that 9 months passed like a single day, for Elchmer had said that he would return before nightfall. The Dag Day slept with Elchmer's wife then, and she bore him a son, who was named Oengus, and by the time of Elchmer's return, she had so recovered that he had no inkling of her having slept with the Dag Day. The Dag Day took his son to be fostered in the house of Maeder at Bree Lay in Thebe, and Oengus was reared there for 9 years. Maeder had a playing field at Bree Lay, and 350s of the young boys of Eru were there together with 350s of the young girls. And Oengus was their leader, because of Maeder's love for him, and because of his handsomeness and the nobility of his people. He was also called the Mac Oak, for his mother had said, "Young, the son who is conceived at dawn and born before dusk." Now Oengus fell out with 3 son of Hebel, or Gobor, of the Fear Bolg. Trial was also a fosterling of Maeder, and was the other leader at play. Oengus had no mind to speak with Trial, and he said, "It angers me that the son of a slave should talk to me." For he believed that Meader was his father, and that he was the heir to the kingship of Bree, and he did not know of his relationship with the Dog Day. But Trial answered, "It angers me no less that a foundling who knows neither his mother nor his father should talk to me." Oengus went off to Meader, distressed and in tears at having been shamed by Trial. "What is this?" asked Meader. "Trial has mocked me and thrown it in my face that I have neither father nor mother." "False," replied Meader. "Who are they then? My mother and my father." "Eku Ulthir is your father, and Eitan, the wife of Elkmar of Bruig na Boinde, is your mother. I have reared you without Elkmar's knowledge so that it would not pain him that you were conceived behind his back." "Come with me then," said Oengus, "that my father may acknowledge me, and that I may no longer be hidden away and revealed by the fear bulk." Meader set out with his fosterling to speak with Eku thus, and then came to Uisnech Medi, at the centre of Eru, for that is where Eku dwelt, with Eru extending equally far in every direction, north and south, east and west. They found Eku in the assembly, and Meader called him aside to speak with the boy. "What would he like, this youth who has never been here before?" asked Eku. "He would like his father to acknowledge him, and give him land," answered Meader. "For it is not right that your son be without land when you are king of Eru." "A welcome to him," said Eku, "for he is my son, but the land I have chosen for him is still occupied." "What land is that?" answered Meader. "Bruig na Boinde, to the north," said Eku. "Who is there?" answered Meader. "Elkmar is the man who is there," said Eku, "and I have no wish to disturb him further." "What advice, then, can you give the boy?" asked Meader. Eku answered, "This. He's to go with the Bruig at Semwin, and he's to go armed, for that is the day of peace and friendship among the men of Eru, and no one will be at odds with his fellow. Elkmar will be at Knock's side of the Bruig with no weapon but a fork of white hazel in his hand. He'll be wearing a cloak with the gold brooch in it, and he'll be watching 350s of youths at play on the playing field. Oengus is to go to Elkmar and threaten to kill him, but he should not do so provided he obtains his request. That request is that Oengus be king in the Bruig for a day and a night, but Oengus must not return the land of Elkmar until the latter agrees to abide by my judgment. Oengus is to return that the land is his by right in return for having he spared Elkmar, that he requested the kingship of day and night, and that it is in the days and nights that the world passes." Meader set out for his land then, and his fosterling with him. And on the following Semwin, Oengus armed himself and went into the Bruig and threatened Elkmar, and the latter promised him a kingship of day and night in his land. Oengus remained there as king of the land during that day and that night, and Elkmar's people did his will. The next day Elkmar came to reclaim his land for the Mac Oak, and at that a great argument arose, for the Mac Oak said that he would not yield the land until Elkmar had put the question out to the Dog Day before the men of Eru. They appealed to the Dog Day then, and he adjudged the rights of each man according to their agreement. "By right, the land now belongs to this youth," Elkmar concluded. "Indeed it does," said the Dog Day. "He hewed at you menacingly on a day of peace and friendship, and since your life was dearer to you than your land, you surrendered the land in return for being spared. Even so, I will give you land that is no worse than the Bruig." "What land is that?" asked Elkmar. "Pletoch, and the 3 lands about it, and the boys from the Bruig playing before you every day, and the fruit of the Boand for your enjoyment." "Fair enough, let it be thus," said Elkmar. He set out for Pletoch and built the fort there, and the Mock Oak remaining in the Bruig. 1 year after that, Meadar went to the Bruig to visit his foster son, and he found the Mochwich on the mound of the Bruig, it being Samhain, with 2 groups of boys playing before him, and Elkmere watching in the mound of the Clittock to the south. A quarrel broke out among the boys in the Bruig, and Meadar said, "Do not trouble yourself, otherwise Elkmere may come to the plain. I will go and make peace among them." Meadar went then, but it was not easy for him to part them. Moreover, a sprig of holly was hurled at him, and put out one of his eyes. Meadar returned to the mock oak, his eye in his hand, and he said, "Would that I had never come to seek news of you, for I have been shamed. With this blemish, I can neither see the land I have come to, nor return to the land I have left." "Not at all," said the mock oak, "for I will go to Dean Caked, and he will come and heal you. Your own land will be yours again, and this land will be yours also, and your eye will be healed without shame or blemish." The mock oak went to Dean Caked and asked him to come and save his foster father, for he had been injured in the Bruig of Samhain, and Dean Caked came and tended to Meadar until the latter was well. Meadar said then, "Since I have been healed, it would please me to leave now." "Well that," said the mock oak, "but stay for a year and see my warriors and my people and my household and my land." "I will not stay," answered Meadar, "unless I have a reward." "What sort of reward?" asked the mock oak. "Not difficult that," answered Meadar. "A chariot worth 7 cumals, and clothing appropriate to my rank, and the fairest women in Eru." "I have the chariot and the clothing," said the mock oak, whereupon Meadar said, "I know of the woman whose beauty surpasses that of every other woman in Eru." "Where is she?" asked the mock oak. "She is of the Ulad," answered Meadar, "daughter of Ailill, king of the northeastern part of Eru. Eitan Echeda is her name, and she is the fairest and gentlest and most beautiful woman in Eru." The mock oak went to seek Eitan then in the house of Ailill in Magninish, where he was welcomed and where he spent 3 nights. He announced himself and told of his race and his people, and said that he had come to ask of Eitan. "I will not give her to you," said Ailill, "for there is no profit in it. The nobility of your family and the extent of your power and your father's is so great that, if you were to shame my daughter, I would have no recourse." "Not at all," replied the mock oak, "for I will buy her from you here and now." "You will have that," answered Ailill. "Tell me what you want," said the mock oak. "Not difficult that," replied Ailill. 12 lands of mine that are nothing but desert and forest have been cleared so that cattle may graze on them, and men dwell there at all times, so they may be suitable for games and assemblies and meetings and fortifications. "That will be done for you," said the mock oak. He went home then, and complained of his predicament to the dog Day. The latter, however, cleared 12 plains in Ailill's land in a single night. Mog Mackay, Mog Lena, Mog Nitha, Mog Tocher, Mog Nadula, Mog Techt, Mog Lee, Mog Lean, and Mog Meher Nahini. The task having been accomplished, the mock oak returned to Ailill and demanded Eitan. "You will not have her," said Ailill, "until you divert from the lands towards the sea 12 great rivers that are in springs and bogs and moors. The fruits of the sea will be brought to all people and families, thus, and the land will be drained." The mock oak went to Dog Day then, again, bewailed his predicament, and the Dog Day in a single night caused the 12 great rivers to run towards the sea, where they had never before been seen. These were the rivers Findi, Warderon, Selene, Nas, Amnas, Olchain, Or, Bonday, Samir, and Loche. This task having also been accomplished, the mock oak again went to Ailill and demanded Eitan. "You will not have her until you buy her," said Ailill, "for after you take her away, I will have no further good for her. Only what you give me now." "What do you want then?" asked the mock oak. "I want her weight in gold and silver, for that is my share of her price. Everything that you have done so far has profited only her family and her people." "You will have that," said the mock oak. The woman was brought to the centre of a Lil's house, and her weight in gold and silver was handed over. That weight was left with a Lil, and the mock oak took Eitan home with him. Meter welcomed the two of them. He slept with Eitan that night, and the following day his clothing and his chariot were given him, and he thanked his foster son. He stayed a year in the Bruig with the Wengus, and he returned to Bree Lay in his own hand, and he took Eitan with him. As he was leaving, the mock oak said, "Look after the woman you are taking with you, for there awaits you a woman of dreadful sorcery, a woman with all the knowledge and the skill and the power of her people. She has, moreover, my guarantee of safety against Tuatha de Danad. This woman was Fuamnach, wife of Meader. From the family of Buenach, son of Elarndil, she was wise and clever. She was versed in the knowledge and the power of the Tuatha de Danad, for the Druid Bracel had reared her from beyond her engagement to Meader. Fuamnach welcomed her husband, and she spoke much of friendship to them. Come, Meader, she said, that you may see your house and your lands, that the king's daughter may see your wealth. Meader went round all the lands with Fuamnach, and she showed her holdings to him in Eitan. He took Eitan back to Fuamnach. Then Fuamnach preceded Eitan into the house where she slept, and she said to her, "The seat of a good woman have you occupied." With that, Eitan sat in the chair in the centre of the house, whereupon Fuamnach struck her with a wand of scarlet rowan and turned her into a pool of water. Fuamnach went to her foster father Bressal then, and Meader left the house to the water that had been made of Eitan. After that, Meader was without a woman. The heat of the fire and the air and the seething of the ground combined to turn the pool of water that was just in the centre of the house into a worm. And they then turned the worm into a scarlet fly. This fly was the size of the head of the handsomest man in the land, and the sound of its voice and the beating of its wings were sweeter than pipes and harps and horns. Its eyes shone like precious stones in the dark, and its colour and fragrance could sate hunger and quench thirst in any man. Moreover, a sprinkling of the drops it shed from its wings could cure every sickness and affliction and disease. This fly accompanied Meader as he travelled through the land, and listened to it and gazing upon its nourished hosts in its meetings and assemblies. Meader knew that this fly was Eitan, and while it was with him he did not take another wife, for the sight of it nourished him. He would fall asleep to its buzzing, and it would awaken him when anyone approached who did not love him. Eventually Fuamnach came to visit Meader, and, to guarantee her safety, 3 of the Tuatha de Danad came with her, Lug and the Dog Day and Ogmay. Meader upbraided Fuamnach and said that, but for the guarantee of those who have come with her, she would not have permitted to leave. Fuamnach answered that she did not regret what she had done, that she preferred being good to herself to being good to anyone else, and that, wherever she went in Eru, she would bring nothing but evil to Eitan, wherever and in whatever shape the latter may be. Fuamnach had brought from the Druid Bressel Airtrim great spells and incantations from which to banish Eitan from Meader, for she knew that the scarlet fly that was entertaining Meader was Eitan. As long as he could watch the scarlet fly, Meader loved no woman, and he did not enjoy food nor drink or music unless he could see it and listen to its music and its buzzing. With her druidry then, Fuamnach conjured up a lashing wind that blew Eitan out of Relay, so that for 7 years there was not a hill or a treetop or a cliff or a summit on which the fly might alight, only the rocks of the ocean and waves, and it floated through the air until at last it alighted the garment of mock oak on the mound of the Bruig. The mock oak said, "Welcome, Eitan! Troubled wanderer, you have endured great hardships though the power of Fuamnach. Not yet have you found happiness, or sighs cure an alliance with Meader. As for me, he has found me capable of action with hosts, the slaughter on a multitude, the clearing of wildernesses, the world's abundance for a Lidl's daughter. An idle task for your wretched ruin has followed. Welcome!" The mock oak welcomed the girl, that is, the scarlet fly. He took it against the breast in the fold of his cloak, and he brought it then to the house in his bower, the latter with its airy windows for coming and going, and the scarlet veil he put around it. The mock oak carried that bower wherever he went, and he fell asleep by it every night, lifting the fly's spirit with its colour and cheer returned. The bower was filled with strange fragrant herbs, and Eitan prospered with the scent and the colour of those healthful and precious herbs. Fuamnach heard of this love and honour that the fly was shown by the mock oak, and said to Meader, "Have your foster son summoned,
that I may make peace between the two of you, and I, meanwhile, will go in search of Eitan. A messenger from Meader arrived at Mock Oak's house. Then the Mock Oak went to speak with him. Foomnock, however, circled into the Bruig from another direction and unleashed the same wind against Eitan, so that the latter was driven out of the bower of the same wandering as before. 7 years throughout Eru. The lashing of the wind drove the fly on in wretchedness and weakness until it alighted to the roof of the house of the Alaud, where people were drinking. There it fell into a golden vessel that was in the hand of the wife of Eitar, a warrior from Indir Kimnache, in the province of Concaber. Eitar's wife swallowed Eitan along the drink in the vessel. Eitan was conceived in the woman's womb and was born as her daughter. 1012 years from her first begetting by Elal until her last by Eitar. Thereafter Eitan was brought up by Eitar at Endebeir Kimé, and the 50 chieftains' daughters were reared along with her. They were fed and clothed for the purpose of attending Eitan at all times. One day, when all the girls were bathing at the mouth of the river, they saw a rider coming towards them from the plain. His horse was broad and brown, prancing with curly mane and curly tail. He wore a green cloak of the seed, and a tunic with red embroidery, and the cloak was fastened with a gold brooch that reached to either shoulder. A silver shield with a rim of gold was slung over his shoulder, and had a silver strap with a gold buckle. In his hand he carried a 5-pronged spear with a band of gold running from butt to socket. Fair yellow hair covered his forehead, and a band of gold restrained it so that it did not cover his face. The rider stopped a while on the river bank to look at Eitan, and all the girls fell in love with him. Then he recited this poem. Eitan is here today, at Seedbin Banfin west of Elve. Among little boys she is, on the border of Inmachammache. It is she who healed the king's eye from the well of Loch Dadilik. It is she who was swallowed in the drink in the vessel of the wife of Eitar. Because of her, the king will chase the birds of Teth Bay. Because of her, he will drown his 2 horses in the waters of Loch Derabrick. Over her there shall be much fighting against Echu of Midday. Sidey mounds will be destroyed, and many thousands will do battle. It is she who will be celebrated everywhere. It is she the king is seeking. Once she was called Bayfind, now she is our Eitan. The young warrior rode away then, and they neither knew whence he had come nor where he had gone. The Mock Oak went to speak with Meader, but he did not find Foomnock there. Meader said to him, Foomnock has lied to us, and as she hears that Eitan is in Eru, she will go to do her harm. Eitan has been at my house in the Broig for a while now, said Mock Oak, in the form in which she was blown away from you, and it may be that Foomnock has gone there. The Mock Oak returned to his house and found the crystal bower with Eitan in it. He followed Foomnock's trail until he overtook her at Owainic Bobwene, at the house of the druid Bresilea Throne, and there he attacked her and struck off her head and took it back with him to Broig na Boinda. The Dream of Oengus. Introduction. The Dream of Oengus is a continuation of the opening episode of The Wooing of Eitan, wherein Boand and the Daegde slept together and Oengus is born, although the story survives only in a relatively late source, the 15th century Egerton 1782 manuscript. It is mentioned in the Book of Leinster, in a list of preliminary tales to the cattle raid of Coolney. Even so, the Dream of Oengus does not appear to be especially old. The themes are familiar to Celtic literature: love before first sight, as in the Welsh tale Hal Colwch One Olwen, the initiative of the otherworld woman, as by Rhiannon in the Pewil Lord of David, and by the Macha in the labour pains of the Lualad, the wasting away of the mortal lover, Gilveway in Ma Son of Mataway, Ailil Angaway in the Wooing of Eitan, the unwillingness of the woman's father, as in How Colwick One Olwen, and the Wooing of Eitan, and the transformation of the lovers into swans, Meader and Eitan, and Boand and the Daegde are scarcely recognisable as the people of the Seed. Boand is unable to help her son at all, and the Daegda has to ask assistance from the king of the side of Mumu. The meeting and transformation of Oengus and Caer Ebermith at Samhain, a time of changes, does evince a genuinely ancient Celtic motif, and the tone of the story, while romantic, is still restrained. The link to the cattle raid of Cuilinne, however, is pure artifice. One puzzling feature of this story is Oengus' failure to reveal the cause of his illness. In the Welsh story, Ma son of Manwë, Gilvefwë falls in love with Ma's virgin footholder. In the second section of the Wooing of Eitan, Ailill falls in love with his brother's wife. Both men fall ill from love, but neither will reveal his guilty secret. And it may be this idea of silence was transferred, inappropriately, since Oengus has no cause for guilt, as part of the overall theme of wasting sickness. The dream of Oengus is the ultimate source of Yeats's poem, The Dream of Wandering Angus. Chapter, The Dream of Oengus. Oengus was asleep one night when he saw something like a young girl coming towards the head of his bed, and she was the most beautiful woman in Éireann. He made to take her hand and draw her to his bed, but, as he welcomed her, she vanished suddenly, and he did not know who had taken her from him. He remained in bed until the morning, but he was troubled in his mind. The form he had seen but not spoken to was making him ill. No food entered his mouth that day. He waited until evening, and then he saw a timpan in her hand, the sweet as ever, and she played for him until he fell asleep. Thus he was all night, and the next morning he ate nothing. A full year passed, and the girl continued to visit Oengus, so that he fell in love with her, but he told no one. Then he fell sick, but no one knew what ailed him. The physicians of Éireann gathered but could not discover what was wrong. So they sent for Ferna, Con's physician, and Ferna came. He could tell from a man's face what the illness was, just as he could tell from the smoke that came from a house how many were sick inside. Ferna took Oengus aside and said to him, "No meeting this, but love and absence." "You have defined my illness," said Oengus. "You have grown sick at heart," said Ferna, "and you have not dared to tell anyone." "It is true," said Oengus. "A young girl came to me. Her form was the most beautiful that I had ever seen, and her appearance was excellent. A timpan was in her hand, and she played for me each night." "No matter," said Ferna. "Love for her has seized you. We will send to Bonand, your mother, and she may come and speak with you." They sent to Bonand then, and she came. "I was called to see this man, for a mysterious illness had overcome him," said Ferna, and he told Bonand what had happened. "Let his mother tend to him," said Ferna, "and let her search throughout Éireann until she finds the form that her son saw." The search was carried on for a year, but the like of the girl was not found, so Ferna was summoned again. "No help has been found for him," said Boand. "Then send for the Dog-Day, and let him come and speak with his son," said Ferna. The Dog-Day was sent for and then came, asking, "Why have I been summoned?" "To advise your son," said Boand. "It is right that you help him, for his death would be a pity. Love and absence has overcome him, and no help for it has been found." "Why tell me?" asked the Dog-Day. "My knowledge is no greater than yours." "Indeed it is," said Ferna. "For you were king of the side of the Éireann. Send messages to Bob, for he is the king of the side of Mumu, and his knowledge spreads throughout Éireann." Messengers went to Bob, then, and they were welcomed. Bob said, "Welcome, people of the Dog-Day. It is that we have come for," they have replied. "Have you news?" Bob asked. "We have. Oengus' son of the Dog-Day has been in love for 2 years," they replied. "How is that?" Bob asked. "He saw a young girl in his sleep," they said. "But we do not know where in Éireann she is to be found. The Dog-Day asks that you search all Éireann for a girl of her form and appearance." "That search will be made," said Bob, "and it will be carried on for a year so that I may be sure of finding her." At the end of the year, Bob's people went to him at his house in Sid Fermoin and said, "We made a circuit of Eru, and we found the girl at Loch Bail Idarcon in Crit Creek." Messengers were sent to the Dog Day then. He welcomed them and said, "Have you news?" "Good news! The girl of the form you described has been found," they said. Bold had asked that Oengus' return with us to see if he recognizes her as the girl he saw. Oengus was taken in a chariot to Sid Fomin, then and he had welcomed there. A great feast was prepared for him, and it lasted 3 days and 3 nights. After that, Bob said to Oengus, "Let us go now to see if you recognize the girl. You may see her, but it is not in my power to give her to you." They went on till they reached a lake. There they saw 350s of young girls, and Oengus' girl was among them. The other girls were no taller than her shoulder. Each pair of them were linked by a silver chain, but Oengus' girl wore a silver necklace, and her chair was of burnished gold. "Do you recognize that girl?" asked Bob. "Indeed I do," Oengus replied. "I could do no more for you then," said Bob. "No matter, for she's the girl I saw. I cannot take her now." "Who is she?" Oengus said. "I know her, of course. Caer Ibormith, daughter of Ithel Emuel, from Sidumuan in the province of Connachta." After that, Oengus and his people returned to their own land, and Bob went with them to visit the Dog Day and Boan de Ebroig in Mach Ewake. They told their news, how the girl's form and appearance was just as Oengus had seen. They told her name and those of her father and grandfather. "A pity that we cannot get her," said the Dog Day. "What you should do is go to Audiobook and Mabe, for the girl is in their territory," said Bob. The Dog Day went to Connachta, then, and 60 chariots with them. They were welcomed by the king and queen there, and spent a week feasting and drinking. "Why your journey?" asked the king. "There is a girl in your territory," said the Dog Day, "with whom my son has fallen in love. Now he has fallen ill. I have come to see if you will give her to him." "Who is she?" Audiobook asked. "The daughter of Ithel Anmuel," the Dog Day replied. "We do not have the power to give her to you," said Audiobook and Mabe. "Then the best thing would be to have the king of the seed called here," said the Dog Day. Audiobook's steward went to Ithal Omnual and said, "Audiobook and Mabe require that you come and speak with them." "I will not come," Ithal said, "and I will not give my daughter to the son of the Dog Day." The steward repeated this to Audiobook, saying, He knows why he has been summoned, but he will not come." "No matter," said Audiobook, "for he will come, and the heads of the warriors with him." After that, Audiobook's household and the Dog Day's people rose up against the seed and destroyed it. They brought out 60 heads and confined the king at Creochu. Audiobook said to the Ethan Imual, "Give your daughter to the son of the Dog Day." "I cannot," he said, "for her power is greater than mine." "What great power does she have?" Audiobook asked. "Being in the form of a bird each day of 1 year, and in human form each day of the following year," Ethel said. "Which year will she be in the shape of the bird?" Audiobook asked. "It is not for me to reveal that," Ethel replied. "Your head off," said Audiobook, "unless you tell us." "I will conceal it no longer then, but will tell you since you are so obstinate," said Ethel. "Next Samhain she will be in the form of a bird, and she will be at Loch Bail Drechan, and the beautiful birds will be seen with her, 350s of swans about her, and I will make ready for them." "No matter that," said the Dog Day, "since I know the nature you have brought upon her." Peace and friendship were among Audiobook and Ethel and the Dog Day then, and the Dog Day bade them farewell and went to his house and told the news to his son. "Go next Samhain to Loch Bail Drechan," he said, "and call her to you there." The Mach Och went to Loch Bail Drechan, and there he saw the 350s of white birds, with silver chains and golden hair about their heads. Oengus was in human form at the edge of the lake, and he called to the girl, saying, "Come and speak with me, Care." "Who is calling to me?" asked Care. "Oengus is calling," he replied. "I will come," she said, "if you promise me that I may return to the water." "I promise that," he said. She went to him then. She put his arms around her, and they slept in the form of swans until they had circled the lake 3 times. Thus he kept his promise. They left in the form of 2 white birds and flew to Buig ind Machoig, and they sang until the peoples inside fell asleep for 3 days and 3 nights. The girl remained with Oengus after that. This is how the friendship between Ailill and Mabe and Machoch arose, and this is why Oengus took 300 to the cattle raid of Cualanay. The Cattle Raid of Fruich. Introduction. The Cattle Raid of Fruich has a peculiar title. Fruich's cattle raid is nothing more than recovery of his own cattle, and his wife, from beyond the Alps. Moreover, this exploit, which has been a late look to it, is tracked onto the main tale, which has been called The Wooing of Findabar, and the tale itself is unusual, for it is a mythological story, and with the personae of the mythological cycle. Pressed into the service of the Ulster cycle, as a preliminary tale of the cattle raid of Cualanay, it begins in the realm of Seed, with Fruich going to ask presents of his aunt, Boand. Compare Fruich's cattle with hounds of Arwen and Pwyll Lord the Ived. White animals with red ears are always from the other world. Immediately, the setting shifts to the heroic warrior world of Connacht, though Fruich returns to the Seed for healing after his battle with the water monster. The theme of the Cattle Raid of Fruich, that of the young hero who must win his love away from her unwilling father, appears also in The Wooing of Eitan and The Dream of Oengus. It is a degraded form for the familiar regeneration motif. The mythic, actually folkloric in its manifestation, pattern imposes an uncharacteristic degree of villainy on Ailill and Mabe. Also uncharacteristic is the dominance of Ailill. Elsewhere in the Ulster cycle, it is Mabe who is the strong partner. Our version of this tale, however, is neither mythic nor heroic, so much as literary and psychological. More attention is paid to motivation here than any other early Irish story. Mabe is guilt-stricken at having neglected Fruich's retinue. Findabar refuses to elope with Fruich, but admonishes him to bargain for her. Fruich rejects the bride prices as excessive even for Mabe. Ailill tricks Fruich into entering the water monster's lake and seems to regret the ruse only because Fruich survives it. Findabar asserts her independence of her father after he accused her of giving her a ring, and by implication herself, to Fruich. Even the dialogue is unusually subtle. Oddly though, Fruich's lie about how he received the ring is never challenged. Is this an extraordinarily ironic touch, or did the storyteller simply forget that Findabar actually does give Fruich the ring? And Findabar, even after producing the ring on the salmon platter, is not allowed to go away at once with Fruich. The Cattle Raid of Fruich. Fruich, son of Iadá of the Connacht, was a son of Béfiend of the Seed, and Béfiend was a sister of Boand. Fruich was the handsomest warrior in Eru and Elbu, but he did not live long. His mother gave him 12 cows from the Seed. They were white with red ears. Although he had no wife, his household prospered for 8 years. 50 kings' sons were the number of his household, all equal in age and form and appearance. Findabar, the daughter of Ailill and Mabe, fell in love with Fruich after hearing stories about him, for Eru and Elbu were full of his fame and his stories. Fruich was told of this at his house, and it fell to him to go to speak with the girl. He discussed the matter with his people, and they said, "Go to your mother's sister, that she may give you some of the wondrous garments and gifts of the Seed." Fruich went then to his mother's sister, to Boand, in Magbraig. He brought back 50 blue mantles. Each was the colour of a beetle's back, with 4 dark grey corners and a brooch of red gold. 50 tunics of brilliant white, with animal embroidery of gold. 50 silver shields with gold rims, and 50 candles of a king's house in the hand of each man. 50 rivets of white gold in each candle, and 50 coils of refined gold about each. The spear butts were of carbuncle, the spear blades of precious stones, and these would light up the night like the rays of the sun. 50 men with gold-hilted swords and 50 dapple grey horses, for each horse a bridle bit of gold, a silver breastplate with little gold bells, a crimson saddlecloth with silver threads, an animal headpin of gold and silver, and a horsewhip of white gold with a gold hook at the end. 7 hounds on silver chains with an apple of gold between each 2 hounds, shoes of bronze, and no colour that was not on them. 7 hornblowers with horns of gold and silver with clothes of many colours, with shining mantles of the golden yellow hair of the seed. 3 fools preceding, each with a silver gilded diadem, and a shield and engraved spiral ornament, and polished strips of bronze inlaid along the sides. 3 harpers in a royal garb about each fool. That company set out for Cuckoo. Then the watchman at the fort perceived them as they entered Mag Cruan Khan. "I see a great company approaching the fort," he said. "Since Alil and May became sovereigns, no nobler or handsomer company have ever arrived, and no such company ever will arrive. The wind that blows from them is such that my head might as well be a vat of wine. One warrior performs a feat like of which I have never seen. He casts his javelin on ahead of him, and before it can strike the ground, 7 hounds with their silver chains have caught it." At that, the host came out of the fort of Cuckoo to see the company. There was such a crowd that the people suffocated, and 16 men died looking. The company dismounted at the door of the fort. They unbridled their horses and unleashed their hounds. They hunted 7 deer to Roch Cuachran, and 7 foxes and 7 hares and 7 wild boars. And the warriors slew these on the green of the fort. After that, the hounds let them to the river Bree, and caught 7 otters and brought them to the entrance of the royal dwelling. The company sat down then, and messengers came to the king to ask him who they were and whence they came. The company gave their true names, and their leader said he was Freach, son of Ida. The steward related that to the king. "Welcome," said Alil and Mabe. "A splendid warrior, Freach," said Alil. "Let him enter the courtyard." A fourth of the house then was set aside for the company. There was the arrangement of the house, 7 rows and 7 apartments round about the house from the fire to the wall. Each apartment had a facade of bronze, divided literally by specially ornamented red yew, and there was 3 strips of bronze at the base of each apartment. 7 rods of copper ran from the house vat to the ceiling. The house was built of pine with a shinged roof. There were 16 windows in the house, with a copper shutter for each window, and there were a copper grating for the skylight. In the exact centre of the house was the apartment of Alil and Mabe. It had copper pillars and it was ornamented everywhere with bronze. 2 borders of gilded silver went with it, while a silver moulding with the headboard rose to the crossbeams. The company made a circuit of the house, from one entrance to the next. They hung up their weapons and sat down and were made comfortable. "Welcome," said Alil and Mabe. "It is for that we have come," said Freach. "Then your journey will not be for nothing," said Mabe. Alil and Mabe played Fahil after that, and Freach began to play with one of his own people. Beautiful his Fahil, said it. The board was of white gold, and the edges and corners were of gold, while the pieces were of gold and silver, and a candle of precious stone provided light. "Have food prepared for the youths," said Alil. "I have no wish," answered Mabe, "but to go and play Fahil with Freach." "Do that, then. It is fine with me," said Alil. Mabe and Freach played Fahil after that. Meanwhile, Freach's people were roasting the game. "Let the harpers play for us," said Alil to Freach. "Indeed, let them," said Freach. The harp bags were of otterskin and were decorated with Parthian leather, ornamented with gold and silver. The kidskin about the harps was white as snow and had dark grey eyes in the middle. The coverings of linen about the strings were white as swan's down. The harps were of gold and silver and white gold, with forms of snakes and birds and hounds and gold and silver on them. And as the strings moved, these forms would make circuits round the men. The harpers played then, and the 12 men died of weeping and sorrow. The 3 harpers were fair and melodious, for they were fair ones of Eitan, 3 brothers, Galtrade and Gerntrade and Soontrade, and Boand of the Seed was their mother. They were named after the music that Eitan, the dog days harper, played. At first the music was sad and mournful because of the sharpness of the pains. Then it was joyful and happy because of the 2 sons. Finally it was quiet and peaceful because of the heaviness of the birth of the last son, and he was named for the last third of the music. After that, Boand woke from her sleep. "Receive your 3 sons, O passionate Eitan," she said. "For the music of sleep and laughter and sorrow will reach the cattle, and women of Alil and Mabe will bring forth young. Men will die from hearing their music." The harpers ceased to play then. "It is a champion who has come," said Fergus. "Divide for us," said Freach, "the food that was brought into the house." Lothar strode to the centre of the house and divided their food for him. He divided each piece in his palm with a sword, but neither skin nor flesh was ever touched. From the time that he became carver, no food in his hand was ever lost. Mabe and Freach spent 3 days playing Fahil by the light of the precious stones of Freach's company. "I have been good to you," Freach said to Mabe, "for I have not beaten you at Fahil lest you be dishonoured." The longest day I have ever spent in the fort this, said Mabe. Certainly, said Freak, for we've been here 3 days and 3 nights. With that, Mabe rose and went to Alil, for she was ashamed that the youths had had no food. A great evil we have done, she said, for not to have fed the youths who have come so far. You prepared to play Fidheel, replied Alil. They ought not to have prevented the distribution of the food of this people in this house, said Mabe. We were here 3 days and 3 nights, but we did not perceive night because of their brilliance, the precious stones. Tell them, said Alil, to leave off their amusements until their food is distributed. The food was distributed then, and everyone was good to them, and they stayed and feasted for 3 nights. After that, Freak was summoned to the House of Council, and he was asked what had brought him. We would like to visit you, he replied. Indeed, the household enjoys your company, said Alil. Better more of you than less. We will stay about a week then, said Freak. The company remained a fortnight in the fort. They hunted about the fort each day, and the Connachta would come to watch. Freak was distressed not to have spoken with Findabar, since it was the need to do so that had brought him. One day he rose at dawn to bathe in the river, and she and her serving maid came to bathe also. Freak took her hand and said, Stay and talk to me. It is for you we have come. Welcome indeed, said the girl. If it were possible, I could do nothing for you. Will you come away with me? Asked Freak. Indeed I will not, she replied, for I am the daughter of a king and queen. You are not so poor that you cannot get me from my people, and it will be my choice to go with you, for it is you that I have loved. Take this thumb ring as a token. My father gave it to me, but I will say that I have lost it. They parted after that. I fear, Alil said to Mabe, that our daughter will run off with Freak. There will be profit in giving her to him, said Mabe, for he will return with his cattle to help us on the raid. Freak found him in the House of Council. Is it a secret? He asked. There is room for you, said Alil. Will you give me your daughter? Freak asked. I will, said Alil, if you pay the stated bride price. It will be paid, said Freak. 60 of dark grey horses, said Alil, with gold bridle bits, and 12 milch cows so that a drink of milk might be had from each, and a white calf with red ears for each cow, and you're bringing your entire number, and your musicians to help us take the cattle from Coolna. I swear by my shield and my sword and my apparel, we will not give such a bride price for Mabe herself, said Freak, and he strode out of the house. After that, Alil and Mabe conversed. A multitude of Eru will besiege us if he takes the girl, said Alil. Best to set upon him and kill him now, before he can bring about our destruction. Pitiful that, replied Mabe, and we will be dishonoured. We will not be dishonoured, for I will arrange it so, said Alil. Alil and Mabe returned to the royal house. Let us go out, he said. To the hounds hunt until noon comes and they grow tired. Alil and Mabe went out to bathe in the river. I am told, Alil said to Freak, that you are good in the water. Come into this pool where that we may see you swim. What sort of pool is this? Freak asked. We know of nothing dangerous in it, said Alil, and it is our custom to bathe here. Freak took off his clothes then and went into the water, leaving his belt behind. Alil opened Freak's wallet then, and his thumb ring was in it, and he recognised it. Come here, Mabe, he said. Mabe came, and he said to her, Do you recognise this? I do, she replied. Alil threw the ring into the river. Freak perceived this, and he saw a salmon leap for the ring and catch it in its mouth. Freak leapt after the salmon and caught it by the gills. He made for land and hid the fish in a secret place on the riverbank. After that, Freak made to leave the water. Do not come out, said Alil, until you brought me a branch from yonder rowan on the riverbank. I find its berries beautiful. Freak went back then, and brought the branch through the water on his shoulders. Findabar said afterwards that, whatever beautiful thing she saw, she thought it was more beautiful to look at Freak across the dark water. His body very white, his hair very beautiful, his face very sharply, his eyes very blue. He is a gentle youth without fault or blemish, his face narrow below and broad above. He is straight without blemish, the branch with his red berries between his throat and his white face. Findabar used to say that she had never seen anything to match a half or a third of his beauty. Freak brought the branches from the water to him then. These berries are choice and delicious. Bring us more. Freak went back into the water, and in the centre of the pool a monster seized him. A sword for me! He cried, but not a man there dared give him one for fear of Alil and Mabe. Findabar, however, threw off her clothes and leapt into the water with a sword. Her father cast a 5-pointed spear at her, so that it went to her 2 tresses. Frigg caught the spear, the monster at his side, and set it back in a kind of play of weaponry, so that it went through a little scarlet mantle and through his shirt. The youths rose about a little then. Findabar came out of the water, and she left her sword in Frigg's hand, and he struck off the monster's head and brought him with him to land. Thus is named Doglon Friach in the River Bray in the land of Connachtra. A little the maid went back to the fort then. Great evil have we done, said Maid. We regret what we have done against this man, said a little. The girl, however, will die tomorrow night, not for the crime of taking the sword to him. Have a bath prepared for the man, a broth of fresh bacon, and the flesh of a heifer, chopped up with a daze and an axe, and added to his bath. All this was done. Frigg's horn players preceded him into court then, and such was their playing that 30 of Hillel's dearest ones died of yearning. Frigg entered the fort then and went into the bath. A company of women rose about him to rub him and wash his hair. After that he was taken from the tub, and a bed was prepared for him to lie down. But the people heard weeping outside Cruchu, and they saw 350s of women wearing scarlet mantles and bright green hairdresses, and silver animal bracelets on their wrists. Messengers were sent to find out why women were weeping, and one woman said, Frigg, son of Ida, is the favourite youth of the king of the seed of Eru. At that, Frigg heard the weeping, and he said to his people, Bear me outside. The weeping of my mother this, and of the woman of Boand. Frigg was born outside then, and the women gathered about him and took him off into the seed of Cuckoo. On the evening of the following day, the people saw him return, accompanied by 50 women and completely healed without fault or blemish. Of equal age and form and beauty and fairness and comeliness and grace the women about him, so that there were no telling one from the other, and they had the look of the women of the seed. Men all but suffocated about them. The women departed at the entrance of the courtyard, but in leaving they so poured forth their lament that the people in the courtyard laid prostrate. Thus it is what the musicians of Eru possessed the weeping of the women of the seed. Frigg entered the fort after that. The hosts rose to meet him. They welcomed him as if he had come from another world. Allil and Maeve rose also, and they expressed regret for what they had done to him, and peace was made. That night a feast was held. Frigg called a lad of the people to him and said, Go out to where I entered the pool. I left the salmon there. Take it to Findabar and leave it with her, and have her cook it well. The thumbring is inside the salmon, and I expect that it will be demanded of her tonight. After that, everyone grew intoxicated, and the singers and musicians entertained them. Bring all my treasures to me, said Allil, and these were brought before him. Wonderful, wonderful, said everyone. Call Findabar to me, said Allil. Findabar came with 50 girls about her. Daughter, said Allil, the thumb ring I gave you last year, do you still have it? Give it to me that the warriors may see it. You will get it back. I do not know what has happened to it, said Findabar. Find out then, said Allil. Otherwise your soul must leave your body. It is not worth that, said the youths. Not with all the treasures that are here already. There is no treasure I would not give for the girl, said Frigg, for she brought the sword that saved my life. You have no treasure that can save her if she does not restore the thumb ring, replied Allil. I have no power to restore it, said Findabar. Do with me as you like. I swear by the god my people swear by, you will die unless you restore it, said Allil. That is why I demand it of you. I know you cannot produce it. That ring will not come from where it has been put until the dead come to life. Then neither wealth nor wishing will restore it. Then since your need is urgent, let me go that I may bring it, said Findabar. Allil replied, You will not go. Let one of your people go for it. Findabar sent her maid to go look for the ring, and she said to Allil, I swear by the god my people swear by, if the ring is found I will not remain under your protection, so long as there is someone else to undertake it. If the ring is found, said Allil, I would not refuse you that, even if you were just a stable boy. The maid brought a platter into the royal house then, and the salmon was on it. Findabar had cooked it well, and the gold thumb ring lay upon it. Allil and Maeve looked at the ring. Frigg said, Give it here that I may see it. And he looked into his wallet. I believe I was absurd when I took off my belt, he said to Allil. By the truth of your sovereignty, tell us what you did with the ring. That will not be concealed from you, said Allil. Mind the thumb ring that was in your wallet, and I knew that Findabar had given it to you. That is why I threw it into the dark water. By the truth of your honour and your soul, Freak, tell how you managed to bring it out. That will not be concealed from me, said Freak. I found the thumb ring at the entrance to the courtyard my first day here. I knew it was a fair treasure, and so I put it carefully into my wallet. The day I went into the water, I perceived the girl who had lost it by looking for it, and I said to her, "What reward will you give me for finding it?" She said that she would give me her love for a year. It happened that I did not have the ring with me, for I had left it behind in the house. We did not meet again until she put the sword in my hand in the river. After that I saw you open my wallet and throw the thumb ring into the water, and I saw the salmon that leapt to catch the ring in its mouth. I caught the salmon then. I took it to the shore, and I gave it to Findabar. That is the salmon on the platter before you. There was great praise and wonder in the house over this story. I will not set my mind on any young warrior in Eru but this one, said Findabar. Promise yourself to him then, said Aulil and Mabe. And they said to Freak, Come with your cattle to drive the cattle from Cuilnane. The night you return from the east with your cattle is the night you will spend with Findabar. I will do that, said Freak. He and his people remained there that night, and the following day they prepared to go, and Freak bade farewell to Aulil and Mabe. The company set out for their own land then. It had happened, meanwhile, that Freak's cattle were stolen. His mother came to him, saying, Not prosperous your expedition. Great sorrow has come of it, for your cattle and your 3 sons and your wife have been stolen and taken to the Alps. 3 cows are in the north Albu with the Cruchnig. What will I do? Freak asked his mother. You will not go in search of them, she said, for you are not to give up your life for them. You will have my cattle, moreover. Not at all, said Freak. I swore my honour and my soul to go to Aulil and Mabe and my cattle, to drive the cattle from Cuilnane. The finding is not to be had, said his mother, and with that she left them. Freak set out then, with thrice 9 men and a falcon and a hound on a leash, and when he reached the land of the Ulad, he met Conal Carnock at Ben de Borché. He told Conal his problem, and Conal replied, Unhappy that which lies before you. Great trouble lies before you, though it is there your mind would be. Help me then, said Freak. Come with me until we find them. I will indeed, said Conal. They set out across the sea, across northern England and the channel to northern Lombardy, until they reached the Alps. They saw before them there was small women and herding sheep. Let the 2 of us go, Freak, to speak with the woman, said Conal. Let the warriors remain here. They went to speak with her then, and she said, Whence do you come? For the men of Eru, said Conal. Unhappy any men of Eru who come to this land indeed, she said. My mother was a people of Eru. Then help me, out of kinship. Tell us about your adventuring here. What sort of land have we come to? A grim, frightful country with truculent warriors, she replied. They seek to carry off cattle and women and booty on every side. What have they brought back most recently? Asked Freak. The cattle of Freak, son of Vidar, from the west of Eru, along with his wife and his 3 sons. His wife is with the king. His cattle are before you, the woman said. Give us your help, said Conal. I have no power but what I know, she replied. This is Freak here, said Conal. And they are his cattle and they are taken. Do you trust your wife? Asked the woman. We trusted her before she came, but perhaps we do not trust her now, they said. Go to the woman who tends the cows and tell her your need. She is the race of Eru, of the Ulad, in fact, said the woman. Freak and Conal went to her and stopped her and identified themselves, and she welcomed them, saying, What has brought you here? Trouble has brought us, said Conal. Ours the cattle, and the woman who is in the house. Unhappy you, she said, to have to face the woman's host, and most difficult of all the serpent that guards the courtyard. I will not go to my wife, said Freak, for I do not trust her. I trust you. We know that you will not betray us since you are of Ulad. How are you of the Ulad? She asked. This is Conal Carnock, the best warrior in Ulad, Freak said. The woman threw her arms around Conal's neck. Now the destruction will take place, she said. For Conal has come, and the destruction of the fort by him was foretold. Let me go, now! I will not be milking cows, but I will leave the door open, for it is I who will close it, and I will say that the cows have sucked. Go into the fort, provided they are asleep. Most difficult the serpent that guards the fort. Many people had been left to it. All the same, we will go, said Conall. They set upon the courtyard. The serpent leapt into Conall's Cernach's belt. They destroyed the fort at once. They freed the women and the 3 sons, and they carried off the best treasures of the fort. Conall let the serpent out of the belt, and neither did the other any harm. After that, they came to the land of Cruachneg and bore off 3 cows from the cattle there. They went past Dúnolach mac Moraine, across the sea to Ardúin Nuchlaich. It is there that Conall's servant Beicne, son of Legair, died while driving the cows, so that there is an Indeber Michain the Brain. They drove the cows across, and the cows threw their horns, so that the place is called Trach the Bain the Corn. Freach returned to his own land then, with his wife and his 3 sons and his cattle, and he went with all Lil and Maid to drive the cattle from Coolney. The Labour Pains of the Ulad and the Twins of Macha. Introduction. Although the Labour Pains of the Ulad purports to be history, it has been erected upon a foundation of myth. Macha, like Rhiannon in the Welsh Pwyll Lord of Dyfed, is a humorized horse goddess, another insular vision of the continental deity Epona, whose name means great horse. Like Rhiannon, Macha appears seemingly out of nowhere. Like Rhiannon, she selects a mortal husband and brings him great prosperity. Like Rhiannon, she is associated with great unique speed. Rhiannon, however, is more thoroughly humorized, for she merely rides a horse that is faster, like those of the 3 Reds in the destruction of Dá Darga's hostel, than any other. Macha actually runs faster than any horse. On the narrative level, this story answered the question, how did Imwyn Muche get its name? According to this version, the word Imwyn means twins, so the name means the twins of Macha. According to another tradition, however, the word means brooch, and the name the brooch of Macha, because Macha measures out the confines of Evan with her brooch. The story also explains why it is necessary for Cuchulainn to stand alone against the Connachta during the initial stages of the cattle raid of Coolney. To the storyteller, of course, the inaction of Conchobar and the Ulad merely afforded additional opportunities to elaborate on Cuchulainn's heroism, and some explanation had to be offered. Perhaps the idea of a general weakness originated in some kind of Covade ceremony. Although the Labour Pains of the Ulad is grouped with the tales of the Ulster Cycle, the name Cruachneg does not appear elsewhere, and the king and his people are not named at all. It may be that the story's association with the Ulster Cycle is not early. In any case, it has not been well integrated. The Labour Pains of the Ulad and the Twins of the Macha. Cruachneg, son of Agnaman of the Ulad, was a hospitaller with many lands. He lived in the wilderness and the mountains, and his sons lived with him. His wife was dead. One day, when he was alone in the house, he saw a woman coming towards him, and she seemed beautiful to him. She settled in at once and went to her tasks, just as she had always been there, and, when evening came, she set the household in order without being asked. That night she slept with Cruachneg. She was with him a long time after that, and there was no prosperity that she did not bring him, no want of food, or clothing, or wealth. Not long after, the Ulad held a fair, and they all went, men and women, sons and daughters. Cruachneg set out as well, with good clothes on him, and a great bloom in his face. "Take care to say nothing foolish," she said to him. "Not likely that," he replied. The fair was held, and at the end of the day the king's chariot was brought onto the field, and his chariot and horses were victorious. The host said, "Nothing is as fast as those horses are." Cruachneg said, "My wife is that fast." He was taken to the king at once, and the news was taken to his wife. "A great misfortune my having to go and free him now, when I am with child," she said. "Misfortune or no," said the messenger, "he will die if you do not come." She went to the fair then, and her labour pain seized her. "Help me," she said to the host, "for a mother bore every one of you. Wait until my children are born." She failed to move them, however. "Well then," she continued, "the evil you suffer will be greater, and it will afflict Ulad for a long time." "What is your name?" asked the king. "My name and that of my children will mark this fairground forever. "I'm Macha, daughter of Sanrith, son of Imath," she said. She raced against the chariot then, and as the chariot reached the end of the field, she gave birth in front of it, and she bore a son and a daughter. That is why the place is called Imwyn Muché. At her delivery, she screamed that any man who heard her would suffer the pains of birth for 5 days and 4 nights. All the Ulad who were there were so afflicted, and their descendants suffered for 9 generations afterwards. 5 days and 4 nights, or 5 nights and 4 days. That was the extent of the labour pains of the Ulad. And for 9 generations, the Ulad were as weak as a woman in labour. 3 classes of people, however, did not suffer this affliction: the women and the children of Cuchulainn. This was the inheritance of the Ulad from the time of Croenic, son of Agnaman, son of Curir, Ulad, son of Fiantric, son of Irmi, until the time of Furic, son of Dalin, son of Maenic, son of Lugad.
The Birth of Cuchulainn. Introduction. The Birth of Cuchulainn exists in 2 quite different versions, one going back, in written form, to the now lost book Drumshnachti, the other being somewhat later. It is the earlier version that is presented here. Cuchulainn, like Conrair Mar, has 2 fathers, but the story of his birth is clearly corrupt. In the original version, Lug must have come to Diachtin, perhaps as a bird, in the strange house and slept with her, and left her pregnant. In this version, Diachtin's visit to the Bruig accomplishes nothing, and there is no connection between Lug and the tiny creature in the copper vessel. Lug himself was one of the most important Irish deities. His continental counterpart, who was probably named Lugos, is identified by Caesar as the Celtic Mercury and the most important of the Celtic gods. And he gave his name to a number of European towns, including Lyon, Leiden, and Liegnitz, Legnicia. In Irish literature, Lug is the most prominent of the Tuatha de Danann in the Second Battle of Maug Tuired, while it is thus appropriate that Cuchulainn, the greatest Irish hero, should be his son. The tradition that makes him so may not be very old. The last section of the story represents a not refined attempt to explain why Cuchulainn was known as the son of Sualatam, when his real father was Lug. Like the birth of the Welsh hero Pryderi, the birth of Cuchulainn is contemporaneous with the birth of a horse. Each hero subsequently receives the animal as a gift. Cuchulainn's birth, however, is marked by other portents. The appearance and guidance of the flock of birds, which clearly is from the other world, and the great snowfall. The event takes place oddly at Brugg na Boinde, Newgrange, a site associated with the mythological tales, and not with those about the Ulad, but it may have been chosen to underline the assertion that he is of divine origin. That Cuchulainn is the son of Conchobar's sister suggests a system of matrilineal descent in Ireland. Cuchulainn is also like the Pryderi, in that the name by which he is best known is not the one he is given at birth. His original name, Setanta, means one who has knowledge of roads and ways and would have been suitable for a divinity whose influence was widespread. Chapter: The Birth of Cuchulainn. One time, when Conchobar and the chieftains of Mulod were at Imwyn Muché, a flock of birds frequented the plain outside Imwyn, and it grazed there, until not so much as a root or a stalk or a blade of grass remained. The Ulad were distressed to see the land so devastated, and thus, one day, they harnessed 9 chariots, and set out to drive the birds away, for it was their custom to hunt birds. Conchobar sat in his chariot together with his grown daughter, Diachtin, for she was his charioteer, and the other champions of the Ulad sat in their chariots, Conal and Logair, and everyone else, even Briacu. Before them the birds flew over Slieve over Edmund, over Brega, and the Ulad were enchanted by the birds' flight and by their singing. There were 90 birds in all, each score flying separately, and each pair of birds was linked by a silver chain. Towards evening, 3 birds broke away and made for Brugg na Boinde. Then night came upon the Ulad, and a great snow fell.
So Conchobar told his people to unyoke their chariots, and he sent a party to seek shelter. Conal and Briacu searched the area and found a single house new. They went inside and were welcomed by the couple there, and then they returned to their people. Briacu complained that it would not be worthwhile to go to a house that had neither food nor clothing and was narrow into the bargain. All the same, the Ulod went. They took their chariots with them, but they did not take much inside. Suddenly, they discovered a storehouse door before them. Then it came time to eat, and the Ulod grew merry with their drink, and their disposition was good. The man of the house told him that his wife was in labour in the storehouse, so Daightine went back to help, and soon a son was born. At the same time, a mare that was at the entrance of the house gave birth to 2 foals. The Ulod gave the colts to the boy as a gift, and Daightine nursed him. When morning came, the Ulod found themselves east of the Bruig. No house, no birds. Only their horses, and the boy with his colts. They returned to Imen Muché, and the boy was nursed until he was a young lad, and then he fell ill and died. Tears were shed, and Daightine was greatly saddened by the death of her foster son. Finally, when she had left Ossai, she felt thirsty and requested drink from a copper vessel, and that was brought. Every time she put the vessel to her mouth, a tiny creature would leap from the liquid towards her lips. Yet, when she took the vessel from her mouth, there was nothing to be seen. That night, she had a dream. A man spoke to her and said that he had brought her towards the Bruig, that it was his house that she had entered, that she was pregnant by him, and that it was a son that would be born. The man's name was Lug, son of Aethliu, and it was for him that the colts were to be reared. Thereafter, Daightine indeed became pregnant. The Ulod were troubled since they did not know the father, and they surmised that Conchobar had fathered the child while drunk, for Daightine used to sleep next to him. Conchobar then betrothed his daughter to Sualtam, son of Roch. Daightine was greatly embarrassed at having to go to Sualtam's bed while being pregnant. So, when the time came, she lay down in the bed and crushed the child within her. Then she went to Sualtam, and at once she became pregnant by him and bore him a son. The Boyhood Deeds of Cuchulainn. Introduction. The Boyhood Deeds of Cuchulainn is not an independent tale, but rather a series of extracts from the cattle raid of Cuchulainn, here presented in the earlier, less refined Lebor Nechoide version. Fergus and a number of other Ulod chieftains have transferred their allegiance to Connachta in protest at Conchobar's treacherous slaying of the sons of Ulishlu. And now, with the Connachta about to attack Ulod, the exiles are describing to Alil and Mabe the boyhood feats of the great hero of the north. The first exploit recalls the opening episode of the Welsh tale Prayer Dur. A naive, callow youth leaves his unwilling mother. He does not have a father, possibly because his real father is understood to be either royal or divine, and goes forth to find his proper companions, the boy troop of Imen Muché in one case, the knights of King Arthur's court in the other. Cuchulainn's feats with his ball and hurley, toy javelin, and his complete dominance over the boy troop are superhuman, and at the same time, pure play. Prayer Dur, though merely precautious, is yet more mature, for, as well as outrunning deer, he dispatches enemy knights and even kisses women. The second extract explains how Cuchulainn once saved Conchobar in battle. Even at this early stage of the Ulster cycle, Conchobar's role has deteriorated, and already Cuchulainn, as his sister's son, appears as his natural heir. The third extract explains how Setanta came to be known as Cuchulainn. Such stories are common in Irish saga, but this explanation is unusually convincing. Why else would a young hero be called the Hound of Cuchulainn? The mystery is rather in why the central character of the Ulster cycle, a figure whose divine origin is manifest, should have been given a name so much more appropriate to our mortal hero, especially when his original name suits him so well. In the case of both Pryderi and Cuchulainn, there are objections to the same name. Rhiannon asks whether her son's own name does not suit him better, while Cuchulainn himself expresses a preference for his original name. But, in each case, the advice of a wise elder, the chieftain of Dyved in the Welsh tale, Cathlub in the Irish one, prevails. The fourth extract seems modelled on the tradition that Achilles chose a short life in order to win great fame. The episode at the end, where Cuchulainn is seized by his Risharstre, or battle fury, has to be cooled off in vats of water, is entirely typical of him, as is his shyness in the presence of bare-breasted women. The antiquity of these extracts is open to doubt. The mythic element is slight, and there is considerable humour. In truth, he was reared by his mother and his father at Aurchek in Mag Miornamhe, said Fergus. There, he was told of the fame of the boys at Emin Muche, for 350s of boys play there. Concobar enjoys his sovereignty, thus 1/3 of the day watching the boys play, 1/3 playing Fidheel, and 1/3 drinking until he falls asleep. Although we are in exile because of him, there is not in Eru a greater warrior. Cuchulainn entreated his mother, then, to let him go to the boys. You are not to go, she replied, until one of the champions of Ulad can accompany you. Too long to wait that, Cuchulainn answered. Just tell me in which direction Imuin lies. To the north, there. And the path is dangerous, said his mother. Llib Tweet lies between you and Imuin. Even so, I will try it, said Cuchulainn. He went forth, then, with his toy javelin, and his toy shield, and his hurley and his ball. He would throw his javelin on ahead and then catch it before it could strike the ground. When he reached Imuin, he went to the boys without first securing their protection. At that time, no one went to the playing field without a guarantee the boys would protect him. Cuchulainn was unaware of this. The boy outrages us, said Fullerman, son of Concobar, and yet we know he is of the Ulad. The boys warned Cuchulainn off, but he defeated them. They threw their 350s of javelins at him, but he stopped every one with his toy shield. They threw their 350s of balls at him, but he caught them all against his chest. They threw their 350s of hurleys at him, but he warded them off and took an armful on his back. Then his Rishtare came upon him. You would have thought that every hair had been driven into his head. You would have thought that a spark of fire was on every hair. He closed one eye until it was no wider than the eye of a needle. He opened the other until it was as big as his wooden bowl. He bared his teeth from jaw to ear, and he opened his mouth until the gullet was visible. The warrior's moon rose from his head. Cuchulainn struck at the boys and overthrew 50 of them before they could reach the doors of Imwin. 9 of them ran over Concobar and myself as we were playing Fidheel. Cuchulainn sprang over the board after him, but Concobar took his arm and said, Not good your treatment of the boy group. Fair play it is, answered Cuchulainn. I came from my mother and my father to play with them, and they were not nice to me. What is your name? Asked Concobar. Setanta, the son of Sultam and of Deactine, your sister. I did not expect such a reception here. Why did you not secure the boy's protection? Asked Concobar. I did not know that was necessary, replied Cuchulainn. Accept my protection now, then, said Concobar. That I will, answered Cuchulainn. That same day, Cuchulainn turned upon the boys in the house. What is wrong with you now? Asked Concobar. I wish that their protection be given over to me, Cuchulainn answered. Undertake to protect them, then, said Concobar. That I will, replied Cuchulainn. They returned to the playing field then, and those boys who had been struck down arose, and their foster mothers and foster fathers helped them. Another time, there was a falling out between the Ulad and Owen's son of Djorthrat. The Ulad went into battle while Cuchulainn was still asleep. They were defeated. But Concobar and Cuscrod, Mendemerhe, and a great multitude survived, and their wailing woke him. He stretched so that the 2 stones on either side of him broke. This in the presence of Briachu yonder, and then he arose. I met him at the courtyard entrance, I being wounded. "Alas! God preserve your life, Papa Fergus," he said. "Where is Concobar?" "I do not know," I answered. He set off then into the dark night. He made for the battlefield, and there he found a man with half a head, and half of another man on his back. "Help me, Hugoland," the man said, "for I've been wounded, and I have half my brother on my back. Carry him a while with me." "That I will not," replied Cuchulainn. The man put his burden on Cuchulainn's back. Cuchulainn threw it off. They wrestled, and Cuchulainn was thrown. He heard the bab from among the corpses. "A bad warrior, he who lies at the feet of a spectre." Cuchulainn rose to attack the man then. He struck his head off with his hurley and drove it before him across the plain. "Is Papa Concobar in this battlefield?" Cuchulainn asked, and his question was answered. He went on until he found Concobar in a ditch, with dirt piled up around him on every side. "Why did you come to the battlefield, and the mortal terror that is here?" asked Concobar. Cuchulainn raised Concobar up out of the ditch. 6 Yulad champions could not have raised him more bravely. "Bear me to that house yonder," Concobar said, "and light me a great fire." Cuchulainn lit the fire. "Good that," said Concobar. "Now if I were to get roasted pig to eat, I would live." Cuchulainn went out and found a man over a cooking spit in the middle of the forest. One hand holding his weapons, the other cooking a boar. The man was terrifying. Even so, Cuchulainn attacked and took the man's head and the boar. Concobar ate the pig, after which he said, "Let us go to our own house." On the way they met Cuscraid, son of Concobar. He was badly wounded, so Cuchulainn carried him on his back. The 3 returned to Emin Muche. On the way they met Cuscraid, son of Concobar. He was badly wounded, so Cuchulainn carried him on his back, and the 3 returned to Emin Muche. "We knew that boy indeed," said Canal Kernock, "and we were none the worse for knowing him. He was our fosterling." Not long after the deeds Fergus had just related, he performed another feat. Cuchulainn the smith offered Concobar his hospitality. He said that a large host should not come, but for the feast would be the fruit not of lands and possessions, but of his tongues and his 2 hands. Concobar went with 50 of his oldest and most illustrious heroes in their chariots. First, however, he visited the playing field, for it was his custom when leaving or returning to seek the boys' blessings, and he saw Cuchulainn driving the ball past the 350s of boys and defeating them. When they drove at the hole, Cuchulainn filled the holes with his balls, and the boys could not stop him. When the boys drove at the hole, he defended it alone. Not a single ball went in. When they wrestled, he overthrew the 350s of boys by himself. But all of them together could not overthrow him. When they played at mutual stripping, he stripped them all so they were stark naked. Well, they could not take so much as the brooch from his mantle. Concobar thought all this wonderful. He asked if the boy's deeds would be similarly distinguished when he became a man, and everyone said that they would be. He said to Cuchulainn then, "Come with me to the feast, and you will be my guest." "I have not my fill of play yet," replied the boy. "I will come after you." When everyone had arrived at the feast, Cuchulainn said to Concobar, "Do you expect anyone else?" "I do not," answered Concobar, forgetting that his fosterling was yet to come. "I have a watchdog," said Cuchulainn, "with 3 chains on him, and 3 men on every chain. I will loose him now to guard our cattle and our herds, and I will close the courtyard." By that time the boy was on his way to the feast, and when the hound attacked him, he was still at play. He would throw his ball up and his hurley after it, so that the hurley struck the ball and so each stroke was the same. He would also throw his javelin on ahead and catch it before it could strike the ground. The hound's attack did not distract the boy from his play. Concobar and his people, however, were so confounded they could not move. They could not believe that, when the courtyard doors were opened, they would find the boy alive. But, when the hound attacked him, the boy threw away his ball and hurley and went at it with his bare hands. He would put one hand on the hound's throat and the other on its back and struck it against the pillar until every limb fell apart. The Ulad rose to rescue him, some to the courtyard and some to the door of the courtyard. And they took him in to Concobar. Everyone was greatly alarmed that the son of the king's sister had nearly been killed. But Cuchulainn entered the house and said, "Welcome, lad. For the sake of your mother's heart, as for myself, however, this was an evil feast. My life is lost, and my household are out on the plain. Without our hound, it secured life and honour. It protected our goods and cattle and every creature between field and house. It was the man of the family." "No great matter that," replied the boy. "I will rear for you a whelp from the same litter, and until it is grown and capable of action, I will be the hound that protects your cattle and yourself. I will protect all Mag Mir Nehemni, and neither herd nor flock will be taken without my knowledge." "Cuchulainn will be your name henceforth," said Cathub. "I prefer my own name," said Cuchulainn. The boy who did that when he was 6 was not surprised by doing heroic deeds when he was 17, said Conal Kirk. "There were other deeds as well," said Fiaku, son of Furfabe. "Cathub the Druid was with his son, Concobar, son of Ness, and he was teaching 100 men the Druid's art, for that is the number he used to instruct. One pupil asked him what that day would be good for, and he said that a warrior who took arms that day would be famous among the men of Eru, and that stories of him would be told forever. When Cuchulainn heard that, he went to Concobar to ask for arms.
"Who instructed you?"
Concobar asked. "My tutor, Cathub," Cuchulainn replied.
"Indeed, we know him,"
said Concobar. He gave Cuchulainn a spear and a shield, but Cuchulainn shook them in the centre of the house until none of the 15 spare sets of weapons in Concobar's household escaped being broken or taken away. He was given Concobar's own weapons then. These endured him, and he shook them and saluted Concobar and said, "Happy the race and the people whose kings had such weapons." Cathub went to Concobar then and said, "Is the boy taking arms?"
"He is,"
answered Concobar. "I'll luck then for his mother's son," said Cathub. But Concobar replied,
"Why? Did you not instruct him to take arms?"
"Indeed, I did not," answered Cathub. Then Concobar said to Cuchulainn,
"Why did you lie to me, sprite?"
"No lie, king of the Féini. He was instructing his students this morning, and I heard him to the south of Aemwyn, and thus I came to you," answered Cuchulainn. "A good day then," said Cathub, "for he who takes arms today will be great and famous, and short-lived." "Wonderful news that," answered Cuchulainn. "For, if I am famous, I will be happy even to live just one day." The next morning, another pupil asked the Druids what that day would be good for. "Anyone who steps into a chariot today," Cathub replied, "will be known to the Eru forever." When Cuchulainn heard that, he went to Concobar and said, "Papa Concobar, a chariot for me!" Concobar gave him a chariot, and when Cuchulainn put his hand between the 2 chariot poles, it broke. He broke 12 chariots that way, so Concobar's own chariot was brought for him, and that endured. Cuchulainn went off in the chariot, taking Concobar's charioteer along with him. The charioteer, Iber was his name, turned the chariot about, saying, "Come out of the chariot now." But Cuchulainn replied, "The horses are beautiful, and I am beautiful lad. Take a turn around Imwin with us, and I will reward you.
After that, Cuchulainn made Iber take him to say goodbye to the boys,
So that the boys may bless me.
He then entreated the charioteer to return to the road, and when they arrived he said,
Put the whip to the horses now.
In what direction?
asked Iber.
As far as the road leads.
Cuchulainn answered. They went on to Sleepfleet, where they met Conal Cernach. That day it was Conal's turn to protect the province. Every Ulad warrior of worth took his turn at Sleepfleet, protecting those who came with poems, fighting enemies, and seeing that no one came to Imwin unannounced.
May you prosper,
Said Conal.
and may you be victorious and triumphant. Return to the fort, Conal, and leave me here to watch in your place.
Well enough that, said Conal.
For protecting those with poetry, but you are not yet able to fight. Perhaps it will not come to that,
said Cuchulainn. Let us go to look at the sandbar at Lochentray, for it is customary for young warriors to rest there.
Very well,
replied Conal. They started out, but Cuchulainn cast a stone from his sling and broke Conal's chariot pole.
Why did you cast that stone, little boy?
Asked Conal.
to test my hand and the straightness of my cast, asked Cuchulainn. It is an Ulad custom not to drive through danger. Therefore, return to Imwin, Popple Conal, and leave me here to watch.
Alright then, said Conal, and he did not drive across the plain after that. Cuchulainn drove off to Lochentray then, but he found no one there. Iber told them that they should return to Imwin and drink, but Cuchulainn replied, By no means. What mountain is that yonder?
Slieve Morndwin,
Eibor told him. Let us travel until we reach it, Cuchulainn said. They drove to Slieve Mondrin, and when they arrived, Cuchulainn asked,
What is that white cairn yonder on the upper part of the mountain?
Vidgarn.
What is the plain yonder?
Ogmabreg. Eibor then told them the name of every major fort between Tamuir and Canadis. Moreover, he identified the meadows and forts, the dwellings and industrious plains, the forts and the great heights. He pointed out the fort to the three sons of Nyachtasheen, Foyle and Fanel and Tuilechil.
Is it they who say they are not more of the Ulad alive than they have slain?
Asked Cuchulainn.
it is they.
Replied Eibor.
Let us go on then until we meet them,
Said Cuchulainn.
Dangerous that indeed,
Said the charioteer.
Not to avoid danger have we come.
Said Cuchulainn. They went on then and unyoked the horses at Congbor Manay and away to the south and above the fort. Cuchulainn took the spancel that was round the pillar and threw it in the river and let the water carry it. For such an action was a breach of Ygais into the sons of Nyachtasheen. The sons perceived what we had done and started out to meet him. But Cuchulainn went to sleep against the pillar, first saying to Eibor,
Do not wake me just for a few, but only for a large crowd.
Eibor was very frightened. He yoked the chariot and tugged at its skins and coverings, which Cuchulainn was sleeping on, but he dared not wake the boy, since Cuchulainn had said he was to wake him only for a great crowd. The sons of Nyachtasheen arrived then, and one of them asked, What is this?
A little boy making an expedition in his chariot,
Replied Eibor. Neither prosperous nor auspicious, this first taking of arms, said the warrior. Let him lead the land, and let his horses not graze here any more.
I have the reins in my hand,
Said Eibor.
You have no reason to incur the enmity of the Ulad.
Besides, the boy is asleep,
Indeed, he is not a boy at all,
said Cuchulainn.
but a lad who has come in search of combat.
My pleasure, said Foyle.
Let it be your pleasure then, in the ford yonder, said Cuchulainn.
You must take note of the man who comes to meet you,
Eibor told Cuchulainn.
Will is his name, and if you do not reach him in the first thrust, you will not reach him at all.
Cuchulainn answered,
I swear by the god my people swear by, he will not play that trick upon the Ulad after my father Concobur's Broud's pointed spear has reached him, an enemy hand mine.
Cuchulainn cast his spear at Foyle and broke his back and took his head and his weapons.
Take heed of the next man now,
Said Eibor.
Fanal his name, and he treads upon the water as lightly as would a swan or a swallow. I swear by the god my people swear by, he will not play that trick upon the Ulad again. Indeed, you have seen how I tread the pool at Imwin.
They met at the ford. Cuchulainn slew Fanal and took his head and his weapons.
Take heed now of the last man,
Said Eibor. Tuchal, his name, and no mistake, for arms will not fill him. Here then, the Dale Chis to confound him and make a sieve of him. Cuchulainn cast a spear at Tuchal, and the latter's limbs collapsed. He went and struck Tuchal's head off, and gave the head and the spoils to Ebor. They heard the wailing of the son's mother, Nyaktashin, behind them, but Cuchulainn took the spoils and 3 heads with him into the chariot, saying, I will not abandon my triumph until I reach Imamukwe. They set off with their victory, and Cuchulainn said to Ebor, You promised me a good drive, and we need that now because of the pursuit behind us. They drove on to Slieve and, with Ebor whipping, they went so fast that the horses overtook the wind and birds in flight. So fast that Cuchulainn was able to catch a cast from his sling before it could strike the ground. When they reached Slieve, they found a herd of deer before them. What beasts are these that are so nimble? Asked Cuchulainn. Deer, replied the charioteer. Would the Ulad think it better to bring them back dead or alive? Asked Cuchulainn. Alive, for not everyone could do that, but all can bring them back dead. But you are not capable of bringing back any alive, asked the charioteer. Indeed I am, replied Cuchulainn. Whip the horses and drive them into the bog. Ebor did that. The horses struck fast in the bog, and Cuchulainn leapt out and seized the nearest finest deer. He lashed the horses out of the bog then, and tamed the deer immediately, and bound it between the chariot poles. After that they saw a flock of swans before them. Would the Ulad think it better to bring these back dead or alive? Asked Cuchulainn. The bravest and the most accomplished warriors bring them back alive, answered the charioteer. Cuchulainn aimed a small stone at the birds and brought down 8 of them. He took a large stone then and brought down 12 more with a stunning blow. Collect the birds now, he said to the charioteer, for if I go myself, the deer will spring upon you. Indeed, it will not be easy for me to go, replied Ebor, for the horses have become so wild I cannot go past them. I cannot go past the 2 iron wheels of the chariot because of these sharpness. I cannot go past the deer because its horns have filled the space between the chariot poles. Step on its antlers then, said Cuchulainn, for I swear by the god of the Ulad, swear by, I will return my head and fix the deer with my eye, so that it will not turn its head for you or dare to move. They did that. Cuchulainn held the reins fast, and Ebor collected the birds. Cuchulainn then bound the birds with strings and cords from the chariot, so that as they drove to Imamukwe, the deer was behind the chariot, the 3 heads were in the chariot, and the swans were flying overhead. When they arrived at Imwin, the watchman said, A man in a chariot is approaching, and he will shed the blood of every person here unless naked women are sent to meet him. Cuchulainn turned the left side of the chariot towards Imwin, and that was a gate to the fort. He said, I swear by the god the Ulaid swear by, unless a man is found to fight me, I will shed the blood of everyone in the fort. Naked women to meet him, shouted Concobar. The women of Imwin went to meet Cuchulainn gathered around Mugain, Concobar's wife, and they bared their breasts before him. These are the warriors who will meet you today, said Mugain. Cuchulainn hid his face, whereupon the warriors of Ulad seized him and thrust him into a vat of cold water. This vat burst, and the second vat into which he was thrust boiled up with fist-sized bubbles, and the third vat he merely heated to a moderate warmth. When he left the third vat, the queen, Mugain, placed about him a blue mantle with a silver brooch and a hooded tunic. He sat at Concobar's knee then, and that was his bed ever after.
The man who did this in his 7th year,
said Fiaku, son of Farfabe.
No wonder should he prevail against odds or demolish an equal opponent now that he is 17.
The death of Aoife's only son. Cuchulainn went to study weaponry with Scatanrach Naonaid, daughter of Ardgame, so that he might master feats. Aoife, daughter of Ardgame, went to him there, and when she left, she was pregnant. And he told her that she would bear a son. You are to keep this golden tom ring, he said, until the boy can wear it. When that time comes, let him follow me to Eru. Let him turn aside for no one, and let him identify himself to no one, and let him refuse to fight no one. After 7 years, the boy went to seek his father. The Ulod were assembled at Trachta Eiste, and they saw the boy out at sea, in a bronze ship with golden oars in his hands. He had a heap of stones in the boat, and he placed these in his slingshot, and dealt stunning blows to the birds overhead, so that the creatures were knocked unconscious. Afterward, he revived them, and sent them back into the air. He performed the jaw feat and his hands until his upper jaw reached his eye. After that, he modulated his voice until he had laid the birds low for a second time, and he revived them a second time as well.
Whoa, indeed, said Concobar. To the land to which yonder lad comes. If the great men from this island were to arrive, they would pound us to dust, inasmuch as a mere boy performs such feats. Let someone go to meet him, and let him not enter this country.
Who would go to meet him?
Who but Conde, son of Eku,
answered Concobar. Why should Condair go? Asked everyone.
Not difficult that,
replied Concobar.
Whatever good sense and eloquence may be required, Conde will possess it.
I will go to meet him, said Condair. Condair went, then, and he met the boy as the latter came ashore. Far enough that, little boy, until you tell us where you come from and who your family is. I will not identify myself to any man, said the boy, and I will not turn aside for any man. You will not enter this country until you have identified yourself, said Condair. I will continue the journey on which I have come, said the boy. The boy turned away, then, but Condair said, Turn to me, my boy. You are capable of great deeds. You are the stuff of blood. The pride of the warriors of Ulod is in you. Concobar welcomes you. Your jaws and spears away from the left side of your chariot, lest the warriors of Ulod rise against you. Concobar invites you to come to us. An ear for you is if you turn towards me. Come to Concobar, the impetuous son of Ness, to Shanghai, the victorious son of Alil, to Caranid of the red sword edge, the son of Fintan, with a fire that wounds battalions, to Morgan the poet, to Cuscrad to the great houses. I welcome you. Conal Cernach invites you to stories, songs, and the laughter of war heroes. Bilal Briku would be greatly distressed if you journeyed on past him. He is being a hero. Moreover, to shame so many I not right. I, Condair, rose to meet the boy who detains champions. I vowed that I would meet this boy, though he has neither beard nor manly hair, provided he is not disobedient to the Ulod. Good, you're coming, said the boy. For now you will have your conversation. I have modulated my voice. I have left off casting unearnedly from chariots. I have collected a beautiful flight of birds by shooting far-flying little spears at them, and moreover, without the hero's salmon leap. I have vowed great feats of arms, lest anyone lay siege against me. Go and ask the Ulod whether they wish to come against me singly or in host. Turn back now, for, even if you had the strength of 100, you would not be worthy to detain me. Let someone else come to talk to you then, said Condair. He returned to the Ulod and repeated the conversation. And Conal Cernach said, The Ulod will not be shamed while I am alive. He went to meet the boy, saying, Delightful your games, little boy. It will not be any the less so for you, answered the boy. He placed a stone in his slingshot and delivered a stunning blow. The thunder and shock of it knocked Conal head over heels, and before he could rise, the boy had taken the strap from his shield. Conal returned to the Ulod and said, Someone else to meet him! But the rest of the host only smiled. Cuchulainn, however, was approaching the boy, playing with the arm of Emer, daughter of Forgil, around his neck. Do not go down there, she said. It is your son who is in there. Do not slaughter your son, O impetuous, well-bred lad. Neither fair nor right it is to rise against your son of O great and valorous deeds. Turn away from the skin torment of your sapling of your tree. Remember Scanrock's warning. If Conley sustained the left board, there would be a fierce combat. Turn to me! Listen! My advice is good. Let it be Cuchulainn who listens. I know that name he bears. If that is Conla, the only son of Aifa, who is below.
But Cuchulainn answered, Silence, woman! It is not a woman's advice I seek regarding deeds of bright splendour. Such deeds are not performed with a woman's assistance. Let us be triumphant in feats, stated the eyes of a great king. Amidst the blood upon my skin, the gore from the body of Conla. Beautifully spears will suck the fair javelin. Whatever were down there, woman, I would go for the sake of the Uloid. Cuchulainn went down to the shore then. Delightful your games, little boy, he said, but Conla answered, Not delightful the games you play, for no two of you will come unless I identify myself. Must I have a little boy in my presence? You will die unless you identify yourself. Prove that, said the boy. He rose towards Cuchulainn then, and the two of them struck at each other. The boy performed the hair-cutting feat with his sword and left Cuchulainn bald. The mockery is at an end. Let us wrestle, Cuchulainn said. I will not reach your belt, answered the boy. But he stood upon the two pillars and threw Cuchulainn down between the pillars 3 times. He moved neither of his feet, so that they went into the stone up to his ankles. They went to wrestle in the water, then, and the boy ducked Cuchulainn twice. After that, Cuchulainn rose out of the water and deceived the boy with the grey bolga, for Scatnock had never taught that weapon to anyone but Cuchulainn. He cast at the boy through the water, and the boy's innards fell at his feet. That, said the boy, is what Scatrock did not teach me. Alas, that you have wounded me. True that, said Cuchulainn. And he took the boy in his arms and carried him up the shore and showed him to the Uloid, saying, Here is my son. Alas, indeed, they said. True enough, said the boy. For had I stayed among you 5 years, I would have slain men on all sides. And you have possessed kingdoms as far distant as Rome. Now show me the great men who dwell here, and that I may take my leave of them. He put his arms around the neck of each man in turn, then, and bade his father farewell, and died. Cries of grief were raised, and his grave and marker were made. And for 3 days not a calf of the cattle of the Lulad was left alive after him. The Tale of Macda Do's Pig. Introduction. Although the tale of Macda Do's Pig, with its feasting and its fighting, may seem the quintessential Ulster Cycle story, its antiquity is open to doubt. Every other important figure of the Ulster Cycle, Alil, Mabe and Saetive de Connachta, Concaber, Fergus, Laguerre, Conal Cernach and all the Uloid warriors, is present. But Cuchulainn is not only absent, he is not even mentioned. One can argue that Cuchulainn is a late addition to the traditions of the Uloid, that this story predates his arrival. There are, however, other puzzling elements. The pig of the title is so large that 40 oxen can be laid across it, such a beast that could be mythic in origin, but it also could be satiric. In the cattle raid of Cuchulainn, Uloid and Connachta go to war with the mythic beast, the finest bull in Ireland. In this tale, the two Protestants fall out over a dog. Macda Do promises the dog to both Uloid and Connachta, then feigns innocence when they show up to collect on the same day. During the bragging contest for the right to carve the pig, the Uloid warriors, the heroes of any ordinary Ulster Cycle story, not only are shamed but are made to look ridiculous. Laguerre has been speared and chased from the border. Oengus's father has had his left hand cut off. Owen has had an eye put out, and so on. And Ferloga's demand that the nubile women of Uloid sing "Ferloga is my darling" to him every night is so comical its inclusion cannot be possibly inadvertent. Something in the rhetorical verse is old and obscure, but it is also hard to resist the conclusion that the tale of Macda Do's Pig is a later story, a parody of the Ulster Cycle in general, and of the cattle raid of Cuchulainn in particular. The story of Macda Do's Pig. There was once a famous king of Lagan named Macda Do, and he possessed a hound. This dog, whose name was Ailbe, protected all of Lagan, so that its fame grew throughout Eru. Messengers from Ailil and Mabe came to ask for Ailbe. At the same time, however, arrived messengers from Concobar and Dualaud with the same request. A welcome was given to all, and they were shown into Macdado's hostel. This was one of the 5 hostels in Eru at the time. This and Darga's hostel in the territory Cooloo and Forgal Monarchs and Macda Rose in Brefna and Da Chokas in Western Meath. 7 doors had Macda's hostel, and 7 entrances and 7 hearths and 7 cauldrons. Each cauldron contained beef and salted pork, and as each man passed by, he thrust his flesh fork into the cauldron, and what he brought up is what he ate. If he brought up nothing on the first try, he got no second chance. Before being taken to the cauldrons, however, the messengers were first shown to Macda's couch, in order that their request might be granted. "It is asked for the hound that we have come," said the messengers from Connachta, that is, from Ailil and Mabe. "You will receive 160 milk cows immediately, and a chariot, and the 2 best horses in Connachta, and as much again at the end of the year." "You will receive 160 milk cows immediately, and a chariot, and the 2 best horses in Connachta, and as much again at the end of the year." "It is to ask of the hound that we have come from Concobar," said the messengers from Ulad, "since he is no worse a friend for giving jewellery and cattle and everything else from the north, and since the great friendship will result." These messages so confounded Macdato that he went 3 days without food or drink, and at night he tossed and turned. His wife said, "You are a long time fasting. You have food, but you eat nothing. What is wrong?" When he did not reply, she went on, "Sleeplessness has come to Macdado's house. He has need of advice, but he speaks to no one. He turns away to the wall, a warrior in fierce combat. His clever wife observes that her husband cannot sleep. Crumthad Niandinar says, 'Tell no secret to a woman. A woman's secret is not kept. Jewels are not given to slaves. You may speak to a woman if no disaster ensues. My mind may comprehend what yours does not. Evil the day that came for the hound of Macdato. Many a good man will die. The battle will be indescribable. If Concobar is refused, there will be trouble for certain. His host will not leave any land or cattle with me. If Ailil is disappointed, Eru will be devastated. Set will carry us off. We will be reduced to ashes. I have advice for you, and the result will not be bad. Give the dog to both sides. Let them fight over it. The advice you offer renews my spirit. God send Alba. The dog's origin is unknown." After that, Macdato rose and was jubilant, saying, "Joy to us and our guests." The messengers stayed 3 days and 3 nights. He took them aside then, first the messengers of Connachta, to whom he said, "Great my complexity and doubt, but I have decided to give the hound to Ailil and Mabe. Let them bring a large magnificent host to fetch it, and they will have food and drink and presents, and the dog will be theirs." The Connachta thanked them. Macdato went then to the messengers of Ulad and said, "Free of doubt at last, I have awarded the hound to Concobar. Let the chieftains of Ulad come for Ailbe. With a proud host, they will receive presents and be welcome." Now the people from Connachta and Ulad proposed to come on the same day, and neither province forgot to show up either. The 2 provinces arrived at the door of the Macdado's hostel. He himself came to greet them and make them welcome, saying, "We were not expecting you, warriors. Nevertheless, I welcome you. Come into the courtyard." They all trooped in. The Connachta on one side of the hostel, the Ulad to the other. The hostel was not small, with 7 entrances and 50 paces between each pair of doorways. Still, the faces round the feast inside were not friendly, for many had done injury to others there. Macdado's pig was slaughtered for the feast. This pig had been nourished by 60 milch cows for 7 years, and was brought in for the feast with 40 oxen laid across it. Macdado himself presided over the feast, saying, "Welcome. This may not be worthy of you, but there are pigs and oxen in Lagan, and whatever is wanting today will be slaughtered for you tomorrow." "The pig looks good," said Concobar. "It does indeed," said Ailil. "But how should it be divided, Concobar?" "How else?" said Briaku, son of Carbad, from his couch overhead. "Where the heroes of Eru are assembled but by combat. You've all flattened each other's noses before." "Let that be done," said Ailil. "Fine," said Concobar. "For we have youths that have strolled around the border,
The worth of your young men will be tested tonight, Conqueror, says Seen Look of the Arad from Cruacus Conalad in the west. Often enough I have left them sitting in the muddy water of Lucar the dead. Often enough they have left fat oxen with me.
The ox you left with us was fatter, said Muirnamir, son of Gerend. For he was your own brother.
Cruacanu, son of Rudlim from Cruacanon Duhunlalaid. Cruacanu was worth no more, replied Logan, son of Curi. Then Niedermar, son of Fergus's son of Velete, who Mechabil, son of Didad, left dead at Tamerlacroix. What do you say? boasted Celtgar, son of Uthrar. To my having killed Coker and his son of dead and taken his head?
At length one man triumphed over all of Eru, Set, son of Agu from Connachta. He hung his weapons over those of everyone else. Then he took knife in hand and sat down to the pig, saying, Find among the men of Eru one to match me in feats. Otherwise I will carve the pig. Inasmuch as his equal had not been found, the Ulad fell silent.
Just look at that, Laguerre,
said Concobar at length. Laguerre spoke then.
It is not tied that Set should carve the pig before our very eyes.
Set answered.
One moment, Laguerre, that I may speak with you. You, Ulad, have a custom. Every one of you who takes arms makes Connachta his object. You come to the border then, and I met you. You abandoned your horses and chariot and charioteer, and escaped my spear through you. Is that how you propose to take the pig?
Laguerre sat down. A tall, fair warrior rose from his couch and said, It is not right that Set should carve the pig before our very eyes.
Who is this?
said Set.
Oengus, son of Lamgawid,
said the Ulad,
and a better warrior than you. Why is he called a Lamgawid? Why indeed? the Ulad asked. I know why,
said Set.
Once I came east, there was screaming. People came. Lamgawid too. And he cast his great spear at me. But I threw it back so that it cut off his hand and left it on the ground. What could bring his son to challenge me?
Oengus sat down.
On with the contest, or I will carve the pig, said Set.
It is not right that Set should carve the pig,
said another tall, fair Ulad warrior.
Who is this?
asked Set.
Owen, son of Dorthrocht, the king of Fermang. I've seen him before,
said Set.
Where have you seen me?
said Owen.
At the entrance to your house, when I was stealing your cattle. Everyone in your land screamed, and that brought you. You cast a spear at me that struck in my shield. I cast the same spear back at you, so that it went through your head and put out one eye. That is why you were one-eyed before the men of Eru.
Owen sat down.
On with the contest, you lord,
said Set.
You will not carve the pig yet, said Muirnamir, son of Gerond.
Is this Muirnamir? asked Set. I have finally cleaned my spears, Muirnamir. It is not 6 days since I took 3 warriors' heads about the head of your firstborn son from your land.
Muirnamir sat down.
On with the contest,
said Set.
You will have that, said Mend,
Son of Salcad.
Who is this?
asked Set.
Mend, son of Salcad,
said everyone.
What next?
said Set.
Now sons of herdsmen with nicknames are challenging me. I am the priest who baptized your father with that name, for I struck his heel with my sword, so that he took but 1 foot away. What could bring the son of a 1-footed man to challenge me?
Men sat down.
On with the contest,
said Set.
You will have that,
said a large, grey, very ugly Ulad warrior.
Who is this?
said Set.
Kelchar, son of Urcham. Just 1 moment, Kelchar, unless you want me to crush me immediately. I arrived at the entrance to your house once, there was screaming, and everyone came to the door. And you were then. You cast your spear at me, but I cast another spear at you, that it pierced your thighs and your testicles. Since then you fathered no sons or daughters. What could you bring to challenge me?
Celtgar sat down.
On with the contest,
said Set.
You will have that,
said Cuscrod, Men Meche, son of Concobar.
Who is this?
asked Set.
Cuscarad,
said everyone.
And he has the look of a king.
No thanks to you, Set,
said the lad.
Right, that is,
answered Set.
You came to Connachta on your first feat of arms, and we met at the border.
You abandoned 1/3 of your attune and left with a spear through your neck, so that today you have not a proper word in your head. The spear injured your cords in your throat. Since then you have been called Cúscagrad Mend. Set thus brought shame upon the entire province of Ulad. Knife in hand then, Set was exulting over the pig when Conal Carnock entered the hostel. He leapt into the middle of the hall, and the Ulad gave him a great welcome. Conchobar took the helmet from Conal's head and brandished it, and Conal said, "Will we be happy to obtain our share of the pig? Who is carving?"
That has been granted to the man with the knife, Set, son of Magu,
answered Conchobar.
Is it true, Set, that you are carving?
asked Conal. Set answered, "Welcome, Conal, heart of stone, angry ardour of the lynx, glitter of ice, red strength of anger in the breast of a champion, full of wound, victorious in battle. You are my equal, son of Fiedchuim." Conal replied, "Welcome, Set, son of Magu, dwelling place of a hero, heart of ice, plumage of a swan, strong chariot fighter, warlike sea, fierce beautiful bull, Set, son of Magu." Conal continued, "All will be clear for our encounter and our separation. A famous tale told by the men of Goads and witnessed by the men of Alls. Noble warriors will meet in an angry combat of lions. 2 chariot fighters will match angry deeds. Men will step over men in this hall tonight."
Now move away from that pig, said Conal.
"What could you bring to it?" asked Set.
Set, it is right that you should challenge me, replied Conal.
"I will meet you in single combat. I swear by what my people swear by. Since I first took spear in hand, there has not been a single day when I have not killed a Connachta warrior. Not a single night that I have not destroyed with fire, and I have not slept without a Connachta head under my knee."
"You are a better warrior than I, it is true," said Set. "If Anlin were here, he would give you another kind of contest. It is our misfortune that he is not in our house."
"Oh, but he is," said Conan. And taking Anlin's head from his wallet, he threw it at Set's breast, so that a mouthful of blood spattered over his lips. Set left the pig then, and Conal sat down to it, saying, "On with the contest!" The Connachta could not find a warrior to equal him. Even so, the Ulad formed a protective shelter with their shields, for some ill-mannered guests had begun to shoot at them from the corners. Conal then began to carve the pig. He took the end of the belly in his mouth until he had made a division, and he sucked on the belly, a burden for 9 men, until not a particle was left. He did leave the 4 trotters to the Connachta though, however. They thought their share small. They rose, the Ulad rose, and everyone hit someone. Blows fell upon ears until the heap on the floor reached the centre of the house, and the streams of gore reached the entrances. The hosts broke through the doors then, and a good drinking bout broke out in the courtyard, with everyone striking his neighbour. Fergus pulled up by a great oak by the roots. Meanwhile, the battle broke out of the courtyard towards the outer doors. At last, Mac Dato came out to him with his dog in hand and wished to see which side he would choose. Abe chose the Ulad and participated in the slaughter of the Connachta, for they were routed. A Magnum A, the hound bit the chariot pole of El Abe, and there the charioteer Ferloiga struck the dog so that his body fell away and his head remained on the pole. The place is called Magnum LV. The route swept south past Bailach Moyna, over Admain Bain in Mashdu, past Kildara, past Grid and Amain, into Feed the Gaelbed Machid, and Ara Mach Lewini, past Drumdal Meg, and over Druch the Coopry. At Achin Kunul Baile, the dog's head fell from the chariot pole. As the host swept west over Mida, Ferloiga, Alil's charioteer hit himself in the heather. When the Ulad came past, he leapt in from a chariot and seized Conchobar by the head from behind. "Beware, Conchobar," he said.
"Whatever you want,"
said Conchobar. "Not much, my wish," answered Ferloiga. "Take me with you to Imimukay, and every evening send the women of Ulad and their newable daughter to sing in chorus, Ferloiga is my darling." The Ulad granted that, since for Conchobar's sake they dare not refuse. A year later, Ferloiga returned west across Ailuin, taking with him 2 of Conchobar's horses and golden bridles for both.